Chapter 2933. Traceless Blood. So it's that guy. Ever since Traceless Blood returned from the 8 heavens, his talent seems to be even more terrifying than before. His cultivation base is constantly breaking through. I remember that he had just officially stepped into the 3rd step of the DAO validation stage, and his cultivation base has reached the early stage of the creator stage. Second Kills nodded. He had some impression of Traceless Blood. When Traceless Blood had gone to the 8 heavens, although his talent was not bad, it was not enough to attract their attention. However, ever since Traceless Blood's return, his talent seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, and his cultivation speed was unbelievably fast. In just a short 100 years, Traceless Blood had advanced from the peak of the Destiny stage to the early stage of the Creator stage. This cultivation speed was simply cheating. Yes, letting Traceless Blood take charge of the Bloodsplash Limitless formation is the best choice. When the time comes, Third Brother can help from the side. That Zhuoan will die even if he doesn't go to heaven or hell, Second Kills said with a laugh. Yes, let's do that. After all, Third Brother is one of the Blood Prison's 3 killers. His status is not ordinary, and he doesn't need to put himself in danger. Traceless Blood is the most suitable candidate. All right, Third Brother, Second Brother and I will continue our seclusion. We'll wait for you to bring back good news. After Second Kills finished speaking, the crimson flame on the seat in the middle gradually extinguished, and so did Second Kill's crimson flame. The bloody flames of Triple Kill surged violently, as if they were about to set a prairie ablaze. Finally, a figure slowly walked out of the terrifying bloody flames. It was a middle-aged man with a square face. He was very burly, and even his loose crimson clothes could not hide the strong lines of his muscles. This man was the true face of the Blood Prison's 3rd killer. Triple Kill flicked his finger and sent out a red message. Then, he casually sat down in his seat, as if he was waiting for someone. Not long after, a crimson figure flew in from outside the palace. Immediately after, a man knelt on one knee in front of him. The man kneeling on one knee did not look very old. His face was chiseled, and he was quite good-looking. Master 3 Kills, may I know why you've called me here? Shui Wuhen asked in a low voice, his voice full of respect. Wu Hen, I have a very important task for you. If you can complete this task well, I will promote you into the ranks of the Blood Prison's 7 killers, 3 killers said lightly. Traceless Blood's pupils shrank when he heard that. He raised his head abruptly and looked at 3 Kills. His eyes were filled with excitement, and his chest heaved up and down violently. Traceless Blood suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a low voice, Lord 3 Kills, please tell me what to do. As long as I can do it, I will not disappoint you. 3 Kills nodded, and said, the mission I want to give you is very simple. I need you to cooperate with me to kill someone. Traceless Blood's eyes flashed with shock. He hadn't thought that Blood Prison's 3rd killer would be preparing to kill someone. Moreover, he would need his cooperation. Didn't this mean that the target of this assassination was not simple? Traceless Blood gritted his teeth and said, Lord 3 Kills, how should I cooperate? Please tell me. 3 Kills nodded secretly and said, I'm going to activate the Blood-Splashing Limitless Array. You will be the host of the Blood-Splashing Limitless Array. Don't worry, I will send 108 elite killers to cooperate with you. Traceless Blood fell silent. His eyes flickered, revealing a look of hesitation. The Blood-Splashing Limitless Array was famous in the Blood Prison and the host region. It was a killing array that had once killed a master at the early stage of Sky-Reaching Realm. However, Traceless Blood was more aware of the horror of the Blood-Splashing Limitless Array. Its side effects were very severe. Whether it was the 108 elite killers who assisted or him who presided over the array, they all needed to contribute a corresponding amount of blood essence to the operation of the array. Blood essence was the life essence of a practitioner. If too much of it was lost, it could easily be life-threatening. Noticing the hesitation in Traceless Blood's eyes, 3 Kills said lightly, if you feel embarrassed, you can refuse. I will find someone else. Traceless Blood clenched his teeth and said, Sir 3 Kills, I agree. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he did well this time, he could enter the ranks of the blood prison's 7 kills and enjoy the highest status and treatment in the blood prison. Traceless Blood really didn't want to give up this opportunity. After all, if he missed this opportunity, he didn't know how many people he would have to kill before he could finally enter the ranks of the blood prison's 7 kills and be on equal footing. Good. Traceless Blood, I really didn't misjudge you. Not only is your talent superb, but even your temperament is excellent. Your future is limitless. Seeing Traceless Blood agree, 3 kills nodded with satisfaction. Let's go. Come with me to prepare the materials for the blood-splashing limitless array and select the 108 elite killers. With a wave of his sleeve, 3 kills left the palace with Traceless Blood. In a remote corner of the dark ancient city, Zhuowen was still asking Sa-Pu about the situation of the merfolk race. How many people have come from the merfolk race this time? Is Sauron the strongest? Zhuowen's eyes flashed as he began to ask the merfolk elite, Sa-Pu, about the merfolk race. Sa-Pu clearly knew his situation. He had no right to refute Zhuowen. As long as it was Zhuowen who asked, he basically answered. After some questioning, Zhuowen roughly understood the situation of the merfolk race that had come to the dark ancient city this time. The merfolk race was one of the 10 great races of the primitive heaven realm. They had a strong foundation and weren't the slightest bit inferior to the 10 extremes Yin Corpse sect of the host region. This time, the merfolk race didn't send many merfolk, only a dozen or so. The main person in charge was an early-stage creator realm elder. This elder was called Mdar. Among the many elders of the merfolk race, he was one of the elders with a high status and was very powerful. In the sect, Sauron's status was actually about the same as Mdar's. Thus, although Mdar was the person in charge this time, he would always ask for Sauron's opinion before making a decision. In reality, the person in charge should be Mdar and Sauron. This time, the merfolk race had also sent their elites. Whether it was Li Yang or the 5 merfolk that Li Yang had brought, their cultivation was basically at the creator realm or above. In the Xian Mi heavenly domain, this kind of cultivation was an expert who stood at the peak and was revered by tens of thousands of people. However, the merfolk race had sent over a dozen elite experts of this level all at once. It was clear that they attached great importance to the dark ancient city this time. Of course, if Sauron and Mdar found out that Li Yang and the 5 merfolk elites that they had sent out had basically been killed by Zhuowen, only Sa-Pu was left, and he had even become Zhuowen's servant. The 2 of them would probably vomit blood. After learning that the strongest person in the team sent by the merfolk race this time was only at the early stage creator realm, Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. Although the strength of a foreign race was much stronger than that of a human cultivator of the same level, Zhuowen guessed that Mdar's strength was at most equivalent to a mid-stage creator realm human cultivator. If Zhuowen used his peak 5-star Pangu sacred body to fight against an expert of Mdar's level, it would naturally be strenuous and unrewarding. However, he had many trump cards. The power of the Huyi Divine Arrow combined with the Huyi Divine Bow had even injured a half-step creator realm expert like Jiao Yanghong of the 10 Extremes Yin Corpse sect. Chapter 2934. Sauron. That's right, Master, we sent a message to Master Sauron just now. I think Master Sauron will be here soon, Sa-Pu said in a trembling voice. Where did you tell Sauron? Zhuowen asked. It's the place where you fought Master Li Yang, Sa-Pu said carefully. Sa-Pu, send another message to Sauron. Tell him that Li Yang and his 4 lackeys are all dead and that the murderer is here. Zhuowen instructed calmly. Sa-Pu was dumbfounded upon hearing this. What kind of person would tell the person who was seeking revenge his location after killing someone? Wasn't that asking for death? Sa-Pu knew that this human cultivator was extraordinarily powerful and could easily defeat a late-stage god of creation like Li Yang. However, Sauron was different. Perhaps Sauron's cultivation level was only a minor level higher than Li Yang's, but he was far more powerful than Li Yang. Even the leader of the merfolk tribe, Mdar, was not confident of defeating Sauron in a short period of time. As for Li Yang, compared to Sauron, he was even weaker. Sauron could defeat Li Yang in a few moves. Sa-Pu knew how terrifying Sauron was and did not think highly of this human cultivator. However, This human cultivator was simply overestimating himself. He actually planned to lure Sauron out. "Master, what you're doing isn't right." Before Sapiyu could finish speaking, he was frightened into silence by Zhuowen's cold glare. "Send the message." Zhuowen's tone was cold as he spoke to Sapiyu in a commanding tone. Sapiyu was helpless. He knew that Zhuowen had already made up his mind, so he could only send another message to Sauron, telling him where Zhuowen was. At this moment, there were still some cultivators who had not left the place where Zhuowen, Li Yang, and 4 slayers had fought. Instead, they were gossiping about the battle between Zhuowen, 4 slayers, and Li Yang. "I wonder who that fellow cultivator was. He really gave us human cultivators face. He beat the shit out of the merfolk tribe. Especially that merfolk at the end. The way he begged for mercy was too funny, how shameful." Among this group of people, there were 3 people who were discussing the most intensely. Looking at their impassioned appearances, Zhuowen's display of invincibility against the group of mermen earlier had greatly vented their anger. Rumble. Suddenly, a gigantic palm descended from the sky like a mountain and landed on the heads of the 3 cultivators who were having the most heated discussion. The 3 cultivators didn't even have the chance to make a sound before they were smashed into smithereens by the palm. They couldn't be more dead. An invisible shockwave spread in all directions, causing the surrounding cultivators to shudder. Their eyes were filled with dread and awe. An unusually tall merman dashed over. At this moment, he slowly withdrew his right hand. Clearly, that palm strike just now was the merman's masterpiece. "It's Sauron of the merfolk race. I didn't expect him to come so quickly." His younger brother and his capable subordinates were killed for no reason. "This Sauron is probably mad. It's best if we don't provoke him." The surrounding people discussed animatedly and couldn't help but distance themselves from the merman who had suddenly appeared. Sauron's aura was extremely strong, and his body was several times taller than Li Yang and the 5 merman elites. The scales on his body were also pitch black. Sauron landed in the arena, and the surrounding people subconsciously retreated once again, not daring to raise their heads and look at Sauron. "Where's that damned human? Where did he go?" Sauron suppressed the anger in his chest, looked around at the crowd and asked coldly. "We don't know where that cultivator went either. He was too fast, we couldn't catch up to him at all." "Right, it's useless to ask us. That cultivator is too powerful. His speed is beyond our reach." Several cultivators in the surroundings retorted in low voices. However, as soon as they finished speaking, Sauron grabbed them with one hand. Soon after, he exerted force in his palm and those cultivators were instantly killed by Sauron. For a moment, no one dared to refute Sauron. At this moment, Sauron was like a tyrant, looking down at the surrounding people from above. The surrounding people were like subjects that had submitted to him, not daring to make a sound. Just as Sauron was about to kill all the cultivators here to vent his anger, his communication jade talisman suddenly lit up. After looking at the message on the communication jade talisman, he narrowed his eyes and was filled with killing intent. "What an arrogant fellow. How dare he provoke me? He's courting death." Sauron no longer cared about the surrounding cultivators. Instead, he took a step forward and disappeared on the spot, causing the surrounding cultivators to be puzzled. In the southeastern corner of the dark ancient city, in the illusory ruins, Zhuowen and the merman stood quietly. Sapiyu stood behind Zhuowen, his legs somewhat weak. This was because not only did Zhuowen ask him to send their current location to Sauron, but he also sent a lot of provocative words to Sauron. Sapiyu knew that if Sauron received his message, he would definitely go crazy with anger. At that time, not only would Sauron not let this human cultivator in front of him off, he would also not let him off. Thinking of how terrifying Sauron was, Sapiyu was already trembling in fear, not knowing what to do. On the other hand, Zhuowen put his hands behind his back and looked into the distance. In the depths of his eyes, there was a burning desire to fight. This time, Zhuowen only sent out his clone, while his original body hid in another ruin. His peak 5-star Pangu sacred body was very powerful, but he had not been able to find an evenly matched opponent to test how powerful it was. He learned from Sa Pu that Sauron was a famous genius of the Merman clan. His combat strength was very terrifying, and he could even fight against the powerful elders of the clan. He knew that he had found an opponent. He wanted to see if his peak 5-star Pangu sacred body was a match for Sauron. Of course, even if he was not a match for Sauron, he still had his original body. Zhuoan had left the Huyi divine arrow and the Huyi divine bow with his original body for safekeeping. If he was not a match for Sauron, his original body would shoot the Huyi divine arrow and guarantee that Sauron would be killed. Whoosh! A stream of light quickly swept over and finally stopped in front of the ruins where Zhuoan was. Zhuoan looked at the unusually tall merman that stopped in front of him and could not help but narrow his eyes. The merman in front of him should only be at the peak of the Lord of Creation, but the aura emanating from his body made Zhuoan very wary. He was much, much stronger than the Li Yang that he had killed before. Master, Lord Sauron has a special bloodline, and his strength is many times stronger than ordinary mermen. You'd better be careful. He is much more terrifying than Lord Li Yang. You must not be careless. Sa Pu carefully reminded behind him. His life was now tied to Zhuoan's. Chapter 29:35. To share the limelight, Zhuoan nodded, but the battle intent in his eyes grew even stronger and shot straight into the sky. Sauron stopped not far from the ruins, and his cold gaze fell on the human cultivator in front of him. Of course, he also saw Sa Pu behind Zhuoan. Sa Pu, you've done well to provide me with the location of this human cultivator. Seeing that you've done well, I've decided to overlook the disrespect you spoke to me through the communication jade talisman. Sauron's voice was very cold. Sa Pu trembled and did not dare to speak. You must be Sauron of the Merfolk race. Zhuoan casually continued, you might have misunderstood. The reason why Sa Pu exposed my location to you was not because he was loyal to you, but because of my orders. Your orders? Sauron's face turned ugly as he stared coldly at Zhuoan. Soon after, he burst into laughter and said, what a joke. If it was really your order, then your head must have been kicked by a donkey. You're actually courting death. Whether I am courting death or not, you and I will know after a battle. I heard that you have a special bloodline and have a special status in the Merfolk race. You are a genius that is focused on nurturing. Zhuoan's eyes were calm. He put his palms together and his body emitted a sparkling light like a spotless glass. Today, I want to see if a genius of the Merfolk race like you or me has a stronger body. Boom. The instant Zhuoan said the word big, the sparkling and translucent light on his body had already reached its peak, and Zhuoan shot out like a cannonball, disappearing from where he stood, exploding with a terrifying thunderous sound. Arrogant and conceited human, competing with my Merfolk race in terms of physical strength. You simply don't know how to write the word death. Sauron sneered again and again, and the pitch-black scales all over his body stood up. He stomped his right foot, and a large area of the starry sky under his feet collapsed, and he also disappeared on the spot. Bang bang bang. In an instant, the two of them were like two phantoms, and they exchanged more than 10 blows in the air. Each collision was like a comet hitting Earth, like a star exploding. The aftermath of the battle spread out, and cultivators below the third step of Dao validation did not dare to face it directly. Poochie. Sa Pu, who was watching from the ruins, was caught off guard. He was hit by the shockwave, and many cracks appeared on his body. His internal organs seemed to have been torn apart, and he was seriously injured. If Sa Pu hadn't reacted in time and immediately retreated far away, he would have died in the aftermath of the two people's battle. To think that the battle between Master and Sauron would be so terrifying. It's probably already at the level of the Master of Creation. Sa Pu's eyes were wide open. His heart trembled with fear and disbelief. Bang bang bang. Continuous explosions rang out in the void. Immediately, the two phantoms that were originally fighting fiercely separated upon contact. They both retreated tens of thousands of meters away and faced each other from a distance. Sauron looked at Zhuoan, who was glowing brightly. His eyes narrowed, and his heart trembled. The bodies of non-humankind beings were much stronger than those of human beings, and they had a natural advantage. Their Merfolk race was one of the top 10 races in the Great Desolate Heaven domain. Although they were ranked last, they were still a top race in the Great Desolate Heaven domain. Their innate advantages were greater than ordinary foreign races. Sauron also had a special bloodline. Even in the entire Merfolk race, he was a first-rate genius. Although Sauron hadn't truly unleashed the power of his special bloodline, Sauron's body was still much stronger than that of ordinary Merfolk. However, this human cultivator in front of him, who didn't have any innate advantages at all, was actually able to fight him head-on with his body and not be at a disadvantage. This was really unbelievable. Sauron had never believed that a human cultivator's body could be stronger than a foreign race's. However, he had to believe it now. This human cultivator in front of him was simply a freak. How did this guy cultivate his body? Zhuowen was also moved. He originally thought that Sauron's cultivation level was only a small realm higher than Li Yang's, and his strength wouldn't be much stronger. With his peak 5-star Pangu sacred body, he would be able to crush Sauron. However, the battle just now had completely exhausted his hopes of being lucky. Sauron was much stronger than Li Yang. They were simply not on the same level. Human, I underestimated you. Sauron's gaze became serious. He knew that this human in front of him couldn't be underestimated. He actually had such a powerful combat strength. No wonder this person dared to make such a bold statement. He still had a few real moves. You're not bad either, Zhuowen said, but his eyes were full of fear. He could feel that Sauron hadn't used his full strength in the battle just now. Of course, Zhuowen hadn't used his full strength either. After all, he had purely fought with Sauron with his body. He hadn't even used the Dao slaughtering tyrannical technique. If he had used the Dao slaughtering tyrannical technique, his combat strength would have increased by at least 1/3. Humph. Do you think you can open a dye house just because I gave you some power? The ignorant are fearless. Now, I'll let you see the true power of my bloodline. Sauron snorted coldly, and there was a trace of anger in the depths of his eyes. What he was most proud of was his physical strength, especially the special bloodline hidden in his body. With this special bloodline, he could look down on all his peers in the Merman tribe. Even in the Sorcerer tribe, the most powerful tribe in the primitive heaven realm, he, who had a special bloodline, had a place. Now, he was being looked down upon by the human he looked down on the most. To him, this was a humiliation. He had to kill this human cultivator to wash away this humiliation. Otherwise, this would become his inner demon in the future. The pitch-black scales on Sauron's body began to turn blood red, and the aura on his body suddenly increased by dozens of times. There was a trace of murderous sharpness in the fierce aura. As the scales turned red, ferocious blood-red spikes grew out of Sauron's joints, emitting a chilling aura. Human, I only need to activate 1/3 of my bloodline to deal with you. It's enough to kill you. Sauron's low voice drifted in the surroundings, and Sauron himself had already disappeared. Only the terrifying thunder-like explosion could be heard around him. Zhuowen turned around abruptly, and his right hand formed a fist that emitted a sparkling light as he struck out. Boom! A blood-red fist swept out from behind Zhuowen, and the fist force that Zhuowen had thrown out just happened to collide with the blood-red fist. Instantly, the surrounding airwaves swept out. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and couldn't help but retreat. He was a little surprised in his heart. Zoro's punch was several times stronger than before, and he was actually at a disadvantage after taking the blow head-on. Bang! 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 The moment Zhuowen retreated, Sauron's attacks instantly became fierce. It was obvious that he wanted to take the initiative. Zhuowen's gaze was sharp, but he was not in a hurry. His hands were like lightning as he executed the tyrannical Dao slaughtering technique. Chapter 2936. Activating the bloodline. Sauron was frustrated. This human cultivator hadn't even used his full strength in the head-on clash just now. Roar! Sauron roared again and again. The scales on his body became even redder. The blood-red spikes on his body transformed and grew in a large area. His aura skyrocketed again. This time, I've activated 2/3 of my bloodline. Let's see if you're still a match for me. Sauron roared in his heart. His attacks became even more ferocious, like a violent storm. Zhuowen frowned slightly and felt the pressure. Sauron, who had activated 2/3 of his bloodline, was much stronger than before. This shocked him. Zhuowen had no choice but to use the profound meaning Skyblade. Zhuowen formed a seal with both hands. Suddenly, a blazing white light appeared in his palms and finally manifested into 2 blazing light blades. As Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body became more and more perfect, his mastery of the profound meaning in the Pangu banner also became more and more profound. Naturally, the power of the profound meaning also increased. In the past, he could only use his hand to form the Skyblade. Now, he could directly manifest 2 light blades. The power was much stronger than before. Zhuowen's hands danced. The 2 sky blade flashed with a dazzling white light in the void. It blocked all of Sauron's fierce attacks and even suppressed him. Sauron couldn't believe it. What was wrong with this human cultivator? He actually had such a powerful technique. Sauron was furious. He felt that he had activated 2/3 of his bloodline and still couldn't take down a human who was only at the cultivation level of the profound meaning master. This made him feel very embarrassed. He no longer held back and activated all the bloodline in his body. His body grew taller by more than 30 meters, and blood-red scales covered his entire body. A huge blood blade that was even taller than Sauron grew out of his back. This blood blade was very primitive. It didn't even have a handle. It looked very strange. Rip! Sauron tore off the blood blade that grew out of his back. Blood splattered, but Sauron didn't seem to be in any pain. His red eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. Zhuowen frowned. Zoro's aura was much stronger than when he had activated 2/3 of his power. It was as if he was facing an invincible beast. Human, it's been a long time since I, Sauron, fully unleashed my bloodline in battle. You're good, you've successfully unleashed my bloodline. Prepare to die. Zoro said coldly and disappeared without a trace. So fast, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He felt that Zoro's speed was much faster than before. He couldn't even catch Zoro's shadow. Bang! Zhuowen only felt a gust of wind on his right cheek. He only had time to place the sky-splitting blade in his right hand across his right cheek. Immediately after, he heard the sound of metal clashing. Soon after, he let out a muffled groan and flew backwards. The sky-splitting blade in his right hand shattered into countless white stars. This blood saber is too terrifying. It actually shattered my sky-splitting blade upon contact. While Zhuowen was flying backwards, this was the only thought in his mind. Zoro, who had fully activated his bloodline, was like a cheat. Whether it was strength, speed, or reaction, there was a world of difference compared to when 2/3 of his bloodline was activated. It was as if at this moment, Zoro's whole person had transformed. It was too terrifying. Bang! Another gust of wind swept over, directly blasting towards Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen had no choice but to place the sky-splitting blade in his left hand in front of him. Immediately, a sharp pain came from his left hand. He was constantly flying backwards by a huge force, and the sky-splitting blade in his left hand shattered into pieces. Ha ha ha. Now you can't show off in front of me. Die. Zoro saw that the sky-splitting blade in Zhuowen's hands had been shattered by his blood saber, and he sighed softly in his heart. Zhuowen had shown his strength time and time again and fought to a draw with him. This was already unbelievable to him. Now that he had fully activated his bloodline, if he still couldn't crush this boy, he could eat *T. After all, on the surface, Zhuowen's cultivation was only that of the Lord of Xuanji. There was a big gap between their realms, and he was also a human cultivator. Fighting with him to this extent already made him feel extremely insulted. Now was the time for him to wash away his shame. Whoosh! Zoro held the back of the blood saber with both hands and fiercely slammed it towards Zhuowen, who was still falling below. His whole body was falling rapidly, and with the help of his falling body, the power of the blood saber became even more terrifying and fierce. Zhuowen's expression was not very good. Looking at the blood saber that was falling forward, he could feel that the power of this blood saber was even more terrifying than before. Zhuowen put his palms together and quickly formed a complicated seal. Shortly after, his body emitted a sparkling and translucent light. This light was different from the light emitted when he released the Pangu sacred body. It was more similar to the light reflected from the surface of unpolished jade. It was very pure. This time, Zhuowen was using the mysterious light of creation from the Pangu banner. The mysterious light of creation was a defensive profundity among the 5 great profundities. Its defensive power was shocking. Boom! The blood saber fell in front of Zhuowen and was blocked by the mysterious light of creation. However, the power of the blood saber was indeed terrifying. The mysterious light of creation barely blocked it. Very complicated ripples appeared on the surface of the light, as if it would collapse at any time. Zoro's eyes were filled with shock. Bang! 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 In an instant, the ripples on the surface of the mysterious light of creation became even denser. It was on the verge of collapse, as if it would shatter at any time. Zhuowen kept retreating, his eyes becoming very serious. He formed a seal with both hands, and a destructive power condensed between his hands. He had used another profundity, the universal annihilation. The universal annihilation was the same as the sky-opening saber. Among the 5 great profundities of the Pangu banner, they were mainly offensive. However, the universal annihilation's attack contained destructive power, and its power was much more terrifying than the sky-opening saber. Chapter 2937. Reversal * crack. * The mysterious light of creation was finally destroyed by Sauron. Sauron's eyes were bloodshot as he slashed his blood saber towards Zhuowen's face. It was as if he could see Zhuo when being completely blasted into a bloody mist under his blade. This made him want to laugh wildly in his heart. Rumble. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. After using heaven and earth perish, he performed the tyrannical Dao slaughtering technique with both hands and punched the blood saber's edge. A terrifying explosion resounded, and soon after, a destructive force spread out. Sauron's eyes became dull. He realized that his huge blood saber's edge had actually deviated and slashed down from Zhuowen's side, hitting nothing but air. Only then did he realize that this human cultivator had actually blocked his blood saber with both hands and deflected it. How did this guy do it? Sauron was stunned. The power of his blood saber was very terrifying. Just now, Zhuowen was forced to retreat by his blood saber, but now, he actually blocked the blood saber and deflected it. This was really inconceivable. The moment Zhuowen deflected the blood saber, he kept retreating. His cheeks were red, and it was obvious that he had suffered serious internal injuries. Although heaven and earth perish was very destructive, the power of Sauron's blood saber was too terrifying. Even the destructive force of heaven and earth perish was slightly inferior to that of the blood saber. Bang! Bang! Sauron seemed to have gone crazy as he violently swung the blood saber in his hand, which turned into terrifying blood shadows and bombarded Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's expression was not good. He could only passively endure Sauron's crazy attacks. The blood saber's attacks were too terrifying, and every time he blocked, his arms would become numb. Bang! A terrifying bloodlight exploded, and a figure flew out in a very sorry state. Not far away, Pu, who had been watching from the ruins, looked carefully. After seeing the figure that flew out, he was so scared that his whole body trembled. The reason for that was because the figure that was sent flying was none other than Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen was in a very bad state. Both of his arms were covered in dense cracks as if they would collapse at any moment. Even his body was covered in dense cracks. Zhuowen's face was gloomy. It seemed that he had really underestimated Zoro. After fully activating his bloodline, Sauron's strength was most likely comparable to an early creation lord's. Using his clone's physical body to resist him was truly a bit of a stretch. Human cultivator, die! Zoro roared, swung his arms violently, and threw the huge blood blade in his hands directly at Zhuowen. In the distance, Pu, after seeing the terrifying blood blade, his face immediately turned pale with fright. He knew that the human cultivator he had recognized as his master was finished. Sauron's attack was really too terrifying. Poochie. Sure enough, Pu saw from afar that the human cultivator was slashed by the blood blade, and was immediately torn into a cloud of blood mist. Not even a trace of him was left. As expected, he's finished. When Sa-Pu saw the human cultivator's body turn into a cloud of blood mist, he fell to his knees with a thump. He could imagine how severe and terrifying Sauron's punishment for this traitor would be. Sauron laughed savagely, his eyes filled with satisfaction. This loathsome human cultivator had finally been killed by him, and the knot in his heart had finally been completely untied. Putting away the bloodblade, Sauron's gaze landed on Sa-Pu in the distant ruins, and a cruel smile tugged at his lips. Sensing Sauron's gaze, Sa-Pu's legs went weak. He couldn't stand up, let alone get up and flee. Sa-Pu, you really are a traitor. You actually betrayed me and recognized a human cultivator as your master. It seems that you don't care about this seat at all. Sauron slowly landed on the ruins, looked at the kneeling Sa-Pu, and grinned. Sa-Pu's hands were on the ground, and his entire body was trembling. He began to speak incoherently, so anxious that he was about to cry. Sa-Pu, don't worry, I won't kill you. After all, you gave me this person's position. Although this person was the one who ordered you to do this, you still did something. However, you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. I will bring you back to the Merfolk clan and throw you into the shark extermination pond for 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, if you can survive, you'll be free, and I won't punish you for your crimes. Sauron grinned, but Sa-Pu's face was deathly pale. The shark extermination pond was a place within the Merfolk clan specially used to punish traitors. Once thrown in, death was certain. No Merfolk had ever lasted more than 100 years in the shark extermination pond. Now, Sauron actually wanted to throw him into the shark extermination pond for 10,000 years. This was no different from killing him. Spare me, Lord Sauron. Sa-Pu hurriedly begged for mercy. Oh! If you're not willing to exterminate the shark extermination pond, then I can only exterminate you now. This is your choice, Sauron said with killing intent. Sa-Pu's face stiffened, and he hurriedly denied it, expressing his willingness to exterminate the shark extermination pond. Sauron nodded and picked up Sa-Pu. Just as he was about to leave, a terrifying killing intent suddenly locked onto him. All the hair on Sauron's body stood on end as he felt a terrifying threat of death. He growled and lifted Sa-Pu in his hand, placing him in front of him. Whoosh! A blood-red light quickly streaked across the sky, bringing with it soaring killing intent as it quickly arrived in front of Sauron. Fart! The blood-red light directly rushed into Sa-Pu's back, then pierced through his chest. Sa-Pu screamed as his entire body was turned into countless blood foams by the blood-red light. At this moment, Sauron's real body, which was hiding in another ruin, slowly stood up and pulled out another arrow. This arrow was only an ordinary creation-level divine arrow, but it was enough. Under the power of Hu Yi's divine arrow, Sauron was completely suppressed. Besides, with the power of Hu Yi's divine arrow, Sauron would be completely injured or even killed within a few rounds. Zhuoan naturally didn't want to waste too much time. The right thing to do was to get rid of Sauron as soon as possible. Whoosh! Sauron's real body pulled the bowstring to 1/3 of an arc, then released it. Instantly, the divine arrow shot out with a sky-piercing killing intent. After releasing the divine arrow, Sauron's real body let out a sigh as blood flowed out of his mouth. Chapter 2938. Ranking skyrocketed. My strength is still too weak. Zhuoan shook his head. Although his original body did not have a Taoist root, he had broken through the taboo of the heavenly Tao and his combat strength was far superior to other cultivators of the same level. However, compared to the Pangu sacred body of his doppelganger, it paled in comparison. If his original body used the Hu Yi divine bow, he could draw the bowstring to 2/3 of its full length. Together with the Hu Yi divine arrow, he could seriously injure or even kill Sauron. However, Zhuoan was not discouraged. The Hu Yi divine arrow that he shot was enough to tire Sauron out. With this arrow, Sauron would definitely not be able to withstand it. Whoosh! The divine arrow was like a bolt of lightning. It turned into a bloody light and rushed toward Sauron with monstrous killing intent. The sharp tip of the arrow accurately pressed against the end of the blood-stained horn, emitting the sound of metal clashing. Boom! With the help of the divine arrow, The blood-stained horn exploded with a terrifying explosive sound. On the body of the arrow, an even more shocking killing intent burst forth. Sauron held the huge bloody saber in front of him. He barely blocked the blood-stained horn and was panting. But soon, his pupils shrank as he realized that the power of the blood-stained horn had changed qualitatively. The killing intent that burst out went straight to his bones and made him tremble. Crack! The blood-stained horn that was boosted by the arrow was too terrifying. The bloody saber could not even hold on for a second before it collapsed and shattered into countless bloody pieces. The blood-stained horn was like a hot knife through butter as it quickly drilled into Sauron's body. The scales that Sauron was so proud of could not withstand a single blow from the blood-stained horn. The violent killing intent turned into a physical destructive force that began to destroy the internal tissues of Sauron's body. Sauron screamed as his eyes widened in disbelief. He had a special bloodline and was known as a genius in the Merman clan. He was also one of the best among the younger generation of the 10 great clans. He had unlimited talent and a bright future. However, he never expected that this time, he had come to the dark ancient city with great ambition. He wanted to achieve something, but he did not expect that he would be destroyed by an unknown human rogue cultivator. If it was a top genius of the human race like Zhongli Haoyang or Yi Chidong, he would not be so unwilling. However, he had never heard of this human cultivator before him. He was just a wandering cultivator who did not have a fixed residence. Human, who are you? What's your name? Sauron could feel that the tissues in his body under the killing intent of the blood-stained horn, Sauron's translation. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He wanted to know the name of the person who killed him before he died. The loser person. Zhuowen's, with a calm as. Sauron translation, Sauron. Sauron roared at the sky, "You are going too far. Don't think that no one will know just because you killed my Merfolk clansman. Today, I will use my lifeblood to set up a curse. After I die, you will be the enemy of my entire Merfolk race. The entire Merfolk race will not let you go." After Sauron finished speaking, his body could not withstand the violent power of the blood-stained horn. He spat out a mouthful of blood and exploded into a bloody mist. Zhuowen shot out another divine arrow, which landed in the bloody mist. There was a golden light in the bloody mist that was hit by the divine arrow. It let out a shrill cry before completely dispersing. "Soul wants to escape." Wishful thinking. Zhuowen sneered. He knew that Sauron had a backup plan after his body was dispersing, so he was prepared. He discovered that Sauron's soul wanted to escape. However, after completely destroying Sauron's soul, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He discovered that in that instant, the traces of his fate seemed to have changed. It was as if a stain had been added to his fate. Although it wasn't obvious, Zhuowen was keenly aware of it. If it was in the past, Zhuowen naturally would not be able to detect his fate, let alone a stain in his fate. However, ever since he practiced the divine divination secret, he had grasped a trace of the art of fate and was sensitive to his own fate. Could it be because of Sauron? Zhuowen frowned. He could not help but think of Sauron's curse before he died. Could it be that the change in his fate was because of Sauron's curse? However, after using the divine divination technique, Zhuowen discovered that the additional stain on the traces of fate did not affect his physical condition or cultivation at all. It was like an inconspicuous stain on his clothes. It was not easy to detect and did not affect his clothes. Since it didn't have much effect on him, Zhuowen didn't care too much about it. After putting away Zoro's spirit ring, he released the Starry Sky token and was surprised to find that his Starry Sky token had suddenly increased by 10,000 points. He now had more than 20,000 points on his universal token. In other words, Sauron alone had contributed 10,000 points to him. It seemed like Sauron was indeed much stronger than Li Yang. Otherwise, his points would not be double of Li Yang's. On the other hand, Zhuowen's ranking had also increased by more than 30 places from 70. Now, he was ranked 35th. Due to the incident in the Dark Ancient City, the number of cultivators in the space camp had decreased significantly. However, the Universal Tower was the core of the space camp. It was also the place where the universal tokens were distributed. Hence, There were still many cultivators here. This name was very unfamiliar to them. A few days ago, this name did not even appear on the Universal Contribution ranking. However, today, this name had suddenly risen to 35th place. Where did this dragon text come from? Why did it suddenly jump to 35th place? Which sect's disciple is he from? In front of the ranking, many cultivators who had doubts in their hearts asked the question in their hearts. I have seen this dragon text before. I remember that a few hours ago, this dragon text was only in the 70s. Why did it suddenly double and enter 35th place? An old man spoke. His voice was filled with vicissitudes and shock. Chapter 2939. Zhongli, how yang are you making this up? A few hours ago, he was only in the 70s. In just a few hours, you mean that this kid has accumulated 10,000 points? Accumulating 10,000 points in a few hours, this is not possible, right? Normally, when a cultivator kills a foreign race of the same level, they can only accumulate 20 points. According to this calculation, this kid killed 500 foreign race of the same level in a few hours? Not possible. Not to mention that foreign race of the same level are stronger than us human cultivators. It is very difficult for human cultivators to kill foreign race of the same level, unless it is a prodigy like Zhongli Haoyang or Yi Qidong. Now that the human race and the foreign race are not in a war, it is very difficult to find 500 foreign race of the same level in a few hours. Everyone discussed animatedly, feeling that they could not figure out how this Long Wen was able to obtain 10,000 points in such a short period of time. This kid should have killed a foreign race expert of a much higher level than him. Otherwise, he would not be able to obtain 10,000 points in such a short period of time. Suddenly, a slightly cold voice came from behind the ranking board. Everyone followed the voice and saw a slender and elegant young woman slowly walking over. This woman looked to be about 27 or 28 years old. Her figure was well proportioned, especially her pair of slender jade legs, which were very eye-catching. However, this tall beauty had a very cold temperament. Even the tone of her voice was cold, without the slightest bit of emotion. In front of the ranking board, when everyone saw this tall beauty, their eyes were filled with reverence, and they all automatically opened a path for this beauty. Behind the tall beauty followed an old man. This old man's face was full of age spots, and a very serious aura of death lingered around him. However, the old man's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, emitting a bright light that could not be looked at directly. Especially the aura that was faintly revealed from the old man's body. It was more vast than the sea, more majestic than the mountains, giving people an unapproachable feeling. This old man was definitely a very terrifying expert. I didn't expect it to be Zhongli Haoyang. Didn't they say that she entered the dark ancient city to look for ancestral shaman Gonggong? Why did she turn back to the space camp? Many people were discussing in low voices when they saw the cold woman walking over. It was obvious that they were puzzled by Haoyang's appearance here. Zhongli Haoyang paid no attention to the astonishment of everyone and directly arrived before the rankings, and her beautiful eyes stared at the name Long Wen at the 35th position as her eyes narrowed. To be honest, a mere rank 35 on the Universal Contribution Board was nothing in her eyes. What she was surprised about was that this Long Wen was able to instantly obtain 10,000 points. She knew very well that if she wanted to obtain so many points in an instant, she would have to cross at least 2 major realms and destroy a foreign race that was much stronger than her. Back then, she had once crossed 2 major realms and killed a foreign race expert with great difficulty. However, she had only obtained 10,000 points, and this was her most glorious achievement in history. But that was when her cultivation was only at the first step of Dao validation. Originally, she thought that it was unlikely that there would be a prodigy who could kill a foreign race that was 2 realms higher than him. She didn't expect that she would be lucky enough to see it today. Young miss, this old man doesn't believe that there would be a human cultivator who could cross 2 realms and kill a foreign race cultivator just by relying on his own strength. The old man behind Zhongli Haoyang narrowed his eyes and glanced at the Long Wen name indifferently as he spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner. Even if this person relied on a powerful external object, it's still extraordinary. After all, a powerful external object requires sufficient strength to control it. Zhongli Haoyang narrowed her beautiful eyes and said indifferently. The old man nodded and didn't refute. Zhongli Haoyang's point of view wasn't wrong. Alright, let's go to the Universal Tower to exchange for things first. It's very dangerous to enter the Dark Ancient City this time. Now that the Alliance is trapped in front of the Door of Darkness, it will take a lot of time to break through the Door of Darkness. I need to use this time to exchange for powerful artifacts in the Universal Tower to deal with the huge dangers that may appear in the Dark Ancient City this time. Zhongli Haoyang was very decisive and didn't hesitate at all. After she finished speaking, she left the Universal Contribution Board with the old man and entered the Universal Tower. Although she was curious about Long Wen's sudden increase of 10,000 points, she didn't care too much about it. Zhongli Haoyang was very confident in her own strength. She was now standing at the peak of the younger generation in the entire Xian-Mi heavenly domain and was fully deserving of the title of number 1. In her opinion, Long Wen's cultivation should only be in the first step of the Dao confirming realm. Perhaps he was only the heavenly Dao master. Perhaps he was lucky enough to kill an expert at the level of Lord Hunyuan, which was why he obtained such high points. Although she was somewhat interested in such a talent, she didn't particularly care. After all, her cultivation had already entered the third step of the Dao confirming realm, and her battle strength was far higher than her cultivation. A mere heavenly Dao master, no matter how much of a genius he was just a small figure not worth mentioning to her. Unless Long Wen was also in the third step of the Dao confirming realm and obtained 10,000 points, Zhongli Haoyang was afraid that she would really pay attention to him and even view him as a great enemy. However, Zhongli Haoyang knew that this was basically impossible. When one was in the first step of the Dao confirming realm, it was still possible to kill a foreign race 2 realms higher. However, when one's cultivation reached the third step, wanting to kill a foreign race 2 realms higher was simply wishful thinking. Take Zhongli Haoyang for example. She could already be considered the most monstrous junior in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. Her cultivation was now at the mid-stage of the Lord of Creation realm, and her battle strength was comparable to that of the Lord of Creation. But if he wanted to kill an alien of the Lord of Creation's level, then he was dreaming. However, when Zhongli Haoyang was in the first step of the Dao confirming realm, she frequently killed foreign races. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to accumulate so many points and become the fully deserving number 1 on the Universal Contribution ranking. If Zhongli Haoyang knew that Zhuowen had used the Lord of Mystery to kill the peak Lord of Creation of the Merfolk race, Sauron, she probably wouldn't be so calm. Sauron had a special bloodline and had a very high status in the Merfolk race. He was also a well-known prodigy of the primitive heavenly domain. Although Zhongli Haoyang was conceited, she was still lacking in strength to kill Sauron even though she could defeat him. As the main character of this small incident, Zhuowen didn't know that his specific ranking would attract the attention of many people. After his clone gradually formed a complete physical body, his gaze suddenly turned cold as he looked at a pile of rubble in the southeast corner. "You've been there for quite a while. Why haven't you come out yet?" Zhuowen's voice was very cold and emotionless. In fact, during his battle with Sauron, his divine sense had inadvertently scanned this pile of rubble and discovered that there were still cultivators' auras hidden in this pile of rubble. Although the aura was very weak, Zhuowen's divine sense was extraordinary. Even if it was just a trace of aura, he could acutely sense it. Indeed, not long after Zhuowen's reprimand, 3 people slowly walked out of the rubble. They were 2 women and a man. After the 3 of them walked out, Zhuowen's gaze instantly landed on the woman standing at the back. This woman was very beautiful and was very rare. She was simply a femme fatale. Chapter 2940. An old friend. I didn't expect to meet Miss Yarrow in the Dark Ancient City. Zhuowen nodded to himself. This beautiful woman was Zhuowen's old friend, Yarrow Shangjuan. When Yarrow Shangjuan was in the 8 heavenly regions, she had been selected by a powerful force and brought directly to the Xian-Mi heavenly region. After that, Zhuowen had entered the Xian-Mi heavenly region. He had thought that he would be able to find out about Yarrow Shangjuan, but he had not found any news about her in the host region. At that time, he had guessed that the force that Yarrow Shangjuan had joined was not in the host region, but in another precept region. Yarou Xiangjuan noticed that Zhuowen was staring at her. She frowned slightly and was unhappy. She had witnessed the battle between this person and Sauron, the Merman clan's genius, and had even killed Sauron. She had been very shocked and had thought that this person was someone important. Now that he was acting like a pig when he saw her, Yarou Xiangjuan despised him. The reverence that had arisen spontaneously earlier had completely vanished. Among the three of them, the leader was a young man with a refined temperament. This young man was dressed in green and had a very strong scholarly temperament. He had also noticed that Zhuowen had been staring at Yarou Xiangjuan. Although he was unhappy, he did not show it on his face. I am Xing Xinglan, a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Divine sect in the South Dao region. These two are my junior sisters. Just now, we saw that you were powerful and could actually kill Li Yang and the other Merman clan experts. So, we wanted to make friends, so. Xing Xinglan chuckled. Before he could finish, Zhuowen coldly interrupted him. So, you followed me? Xing Xinglan was slightly embarrassed and angry. He had already revealed his identity, but this person's attitude was still so unyielding. Although the Heaven and Earth Divine sect was not the strongest force in the South Dao region, it was still a Dao Palace level force. Among the many forces in the South Dao region, it could be ranked in the top 3. Ordinary cultivators would be very polite when they heard about the Heaven and Earth Divine sect. They would not react so calmly like Zhuowen. Could it be that this person was not afraid of the Heaven and Earth Divine sect at all? It's not stalking. I just want to make friends with him. Xing Xinglan felt somewhat sullen, but he did not dare to get angry. After all, although the person before him was only a loose cultivator, his strength was very abnormal. Little did he know that even Sauron had been killed by this person. Zhuowen nodded. He didn't really care about Xing Xinglan. Xing Xinglan's cultivation was at the Eternal Overlord realm. Among the younger generation, he could be considered a genius. However, to Zhuowen, this level of cultivation was simply trash. He could destroy him with a flip of his hand. He wasn't afraid of Xing Xinglan playing any tricks. By the way, what level of power is the Heaven and Earth Divine sect in the Southern Dao region? Suddenly, Zhuowen asked. This was indeed the first time he had heard of the Heaven and Earth Divine sect. After all, he had spent most of his time in the host domain and was very familiar with the host domain. As for the other precept domains, he was a complete novice. Xing Xinglan's expression froze. Yarou Xiangjuan and the other female cultivator were also speechless. It turned out that this guy in front of them didn't even know about the Heaven and Earth Divine sect. No wonder he was so calm after Xing Xinglan revealed his identity as a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Divine sect. Xing Xinglan was depressed. The Heaven and Earth Divine sect was a Dao Palace level power in the Southern Dao region. Even if this person was not a cultivator of the Southern Dao region, he should have known about the Heaven and Earth Divine sect. How could he not know anything about it? What he said just now was for naught. Ahem. My friend, the Heaven and Earth Divine sect is one of the Dao Palace level powers in the Southern Dao region. It's one of the top powers in the Southern Dao region, Xing Xinglan said with a smug look in his eyes. He felt that after this person knew that the Heaven and Earth Divine sect was a Dao Palace level power, he would definitely show a look of reverence. When the time came, his attitude towards him would definitely change very quickly. Oh, so it's a Dao Palace level power in the Southern Dao region. Zhuowen nodded calmly, as if he had just heard of an ordinary power. It was not Zhuowen's fault. After all, he had broken into a Dao Palace level power like the 10 Ultimate Yin Corps sect and destroyed a country. He had even been wanted by the 10 Ultimate Yin Corps sect disciples and geniuses like the Ghost Plume. In Zhuowen's eyes, a Dao Palace level power was not that unreachable. This was also the reason why he appeared so calm. Xing Xinglan was going crazy. Was this guy a freak? He did not show any reverence for a Dao Palace level power. This was a Dao Palace level power, not an ordinary power. Could he please show some reaction? Yarou Xiangjuan and the female cultivator were even more surprised. Zhuowen's reaction was a little too calm. Putting on an act, Yarou Xiangjuan snorted coldly in her heart. She did not have a good impression of Zhuowen at all. The current Zhuoan had changed his appearance and was not his original appearance. Therefore, Yaro Shengjuan did not recognize Zhuoan and only treated him as an annoying stranger. "Alright, my name is Long Wen. Now that you know me, if there's nothing else, you can leave this place." Zhuoan waved his hand impatiently. "You." The female cultivator beside Yaro Shengjuan was furious and wanted to scold him, but she was stopped by Xing Xinglan. Xing Xinglan smiled and said, "So it's Brother Long. Actually, we came with you this time not only to get to know you, but also to invite you into the depths of the dark ancient city." "The depths of the dark ancient city? Aren't the experts of your yin and yang divine sect in the depths? Why are you inviting me to go in with you? Isn't it unnecessary?" Zhuoan asked in surprise. Xing Xinglan said calmly, "Our yin and yang divine sect has indeed entered the depths of the dark ancient city. In addition to our sect, there are representatives of other Dao Palace forces and experts of foreign races. We have formed a temporary alliance. However, the alliance is now blocked in front of the dark ancient city's dark portal. There is a sky-level formation in the dark portal. Even if all the experts of the alliance join forces to attack it, it will be useless." "Oh, there's a sky-level formation?" Zhuoan was surprised. If it was really a sky-level formation, it was indeed not something that ordinary experts could break. Moreover, there must be an early-stage sky-level master like Senki Yin in the temporary alliance. However, they could not break it open even if they joined forces. This sky-level formation was definitely not an ordinary one. If there is a sky-level formation in the way that even the experts of your sect can't do anything about, then isn't it unnecessary for you to ask me to accompany you?" Zhuoan was speechless. "Brother Long, you may not know this. The sky-level formation only restricts experts of the creator level and above. In other words, anyone below the creator level can enter. Brother Long, you were able to kill Sauron. Your strength has already surpassed ordinary creator levels. If you help us, entering the dark portal will be like adding wings to a tiger. Of course, I guarantee that I can help you suppress the matter of you killing Sauron. With the strength of our yin and yang divine sect, we really don't need to fear the merfolk." Xing Xinglan's eyes were full of confidence. "Oh, you mean that if I join you, you will help me suppress the matter of Sauron? If I don't, you will betray me." Chapter 2941. Cooperation Boom. The terrifying killing intent seemed to have materialized as it exploded, setting off a strong storm in the surroundings. Xing Xinglan, Yaro Shengjuan, and Wen Yatong's expressions all changed. Their faces were extremely pale as their bodies trembled. The most miserable one was none other than Xing Xinglan. As Zhuoan's killing intent was targeted at Xing Xinglan was currently enduring unbearable pain and pressure. Xing Xinglan's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he looked at the young man in front of him in fear. He involuntarily knelt down with a plop. "Brother Long, you've misunderstood. I didn't mean to threaten you. I said the wrong thing just now," Xing Xinglan said while trembling. Zhuoan's lips were filled with a cold smile. He completely ignored Xing Xinglan's pleas for mercy as the killing intent in his eyes became more and more terrifying. Xing Xinglan's heart skipped a beat as he felt the threat of death. He was extremely regretful. He shouldn't have taken advantage of the fact that he was a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Divine sect to shoot at the young man in front of him. One had to know that the young man in front of him had even killed the mermaid genius Sauron without hesitation. Although his status in the Heaven and Earth Divine sect was not low, he was only an ordinary genius. Compared to Sauron, the difference was like heaven and earth. It would be extremely easy for this person to kill him. Xing Xinglan was an idiot. He actually dared to threaten such a terrifying person with words. Was he tired of living? Yaro Shengjuan and Wen Yatong were standing far away, and Zhuoan's killing intent was not targeted at them. Therefore, although they felt a chill in their hearts, they were not suppressed to the point that they could only kneel down like Xing Xinglan. However, the two female cultivators were clearly frightened. They stood on the spot and were at a loss of what to do. However, Yaro Shengjuan quickly came back to her senses. Her beautiful eyes were filled with determination as she walked towards Zhuoan. Although she was slow, Her steps were very firm. Zhuowen was a little surprised as he looked at Yarou Shangjuan, who was walking towards him. Yarou Shangjuan stopped 10 meters away from Zhuowen. She took a deep breath and stared at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. Her delicate body was trembling, but her gaze was stubborn and resolute. Senior, although senior brother Xing's words just now were inappropriate, he doesn't deserve death. Junior sister, I apologize for senior brother Xing's rash actions just now. I beg senior to let him off, Yarou Shangjuan said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. When Xing Xinglan saw that Yarou Shangjuan was pleading for him, he placed his hands on the ground and did not dare to speak carelessly. Right now, his mind was filled with the fear of death. Zhuowen looked at Yarou Shangjuan with interest and couldn't help but nod inwardly. He had to admit that Yarou Shangjuan's personality hadn't changed even after so many years. She was still as tenacious and unyielding as before. Are you not afraid of death? Zhuowen asked. I'm afraid. However, what I'm more afraid of is that I don't dare to stand up for my fellow apprentices when they're in trouble, causing them to die, Yarou Shangjuan said indifferently. Junior sister Yarou, shut up. No one will take you to be a mute if you don't speak. Suddenly, Xing Xinglan turned around, and his eyes were crimson red as he roared at Yarou Shangjuan like a furious lion. Yarou Shangjuan was stunned. She didn't expect that Xing Xinglan would actually shout at her with such a hostile tone. This caused her to feel slightly wronged in her heart, and she was stunned on the spot, unable to say a single word. She originally thought that her actions would obtain Xing Xinglan's approval, yet she didn't expect that Xing Xinglan actually didn't appreciate her actions in the slightest and even vented his resentment on her. After berating Yarou Shangjuan, Xing Xinglan turned around to look at Zhuowen and revealed a flattering smile as he said, Senior, I was rude earlier. Now, Xing Xinglan only begs Senior to let me off. Even if Senior wants me to be your dog, it's fine as well. Yarou Shangjuan looked at Xing Xinglan, who was wagging his tail and begging for pity before Zhuowen in disbelief. Was this still the cultured and refined senior brother Xing that she admired in the past? In Yarou Shangjuan's impression, senior brother Xing should be neither servile nor overbearing, calm and unhurried, and unyielding to abuse. But now, Xing Xinglan's actions had clearly taken her by surprise. Zhuowen slowly withdrew his killing intent and glanced indifferently at Xing Xinglan. After the latter felt the killing intent on his body withdraw, he finally heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. But his lowered head, and his eyes flickered with resentment. This young man before him made him bow and scrape in front of his 2 junior sisters and suffer humiliation. He would remember this grudge in his heart. Go and apologize to this Miss Yarou. After you apologize, I won't pursue your earlier mistake. Zhuowen pointed at Yarou Shangjuan as he spoke to Xing Xinglan. Xing Xinglan hurriedly nodded, but on second thought, he was immediately stunned. He asked Zhuowen instead, Senior wants me to apologize to junior sister Yarou? Why? Oh, you want to know why? Zhuowen's gaze became sharp as he stared straight at Xing Xinglan. Xing Xinglan's scalp went numb, and he didn't dare to say anything else. He hurriedly bowed deeply towards Yarou Shangjuan, and said, Junior sister Yarou, I was wrong just now. I shouldn't have reprimanded you. It's senior brother's fault. Please forgive senior brother. Yarou Shangjuan's beautiful eyes looked at the apologetic Xing Xinglan with a complicated expression. She waved her hand and said somewhat dispiritedly, Senior brother, there's no need to apologize. What you did just now wasn't wrong. I was impulsive and did something unnecessary. Xing Xinglan's gaze darkened. He knew that Yarou Shangjuan was thoroughly disappointed in him, and his expression didn't look too good, but he didn't show it. He knew that his excessive behavior just now had completely changed Yarou Shangjuan's view of him. This made him a little angry, and his resentment towards Zhuowen deepened. If it weren't for Zhuowen, he wouldn't have behaved so unbearably in front of his 2 junior sisters. Especially Yarou Shangjuan. She was really too beautiful, and the other female cultivators in the sect were overshadowed when compared to her. In order to pursue Yarou Shangjuan, Xing Xinglan had spent too much effort, and even painstakingly displayed his positive image in front of Yarou Shangjuan, causing her to have a good impression of him. But now, because of Zhuowen, his image in Yarou Shangjuan's eyes had completely collapsed. He knew that the possibility of recovering Yarou Shangjuan's good impression of him was very small. However, he didn't dare to do anything to Zhuowen now. After all, the young man in front of him was too strange. His strength was too terrifying, and he was no match for him at all. After Yarou Shangjuan finished speaking, she no longer paid attention to Xingxinglan. She only cupped her fists towards Zhuowen, and returned to the side of the female cultivator, preparing to leave this place. By the way, Miss Yao, would I, Long Wen, have the honor of going to the depths of the dark ancient city with you? If possible, I'm prepared to enter the door of darkness with the people of your yin and yang divine sect. Zhuowen suddenly called out to Yarou Shangjuan, and spoke his thoughts. Senior, do you plan to cooperate with us? Yarou Shangjuan looked at Zhuowen with some astonishment. Obviously, she didn't expect that this senior, who didn't give any face to Xingxinglan, would take the initiative to propose cooperation with their yin and yang divine sect. Yes, don't you welcome me? Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Chapter 2942. Door of Darkness. Although Yarou Shangjuan could faintly feel that this young man's attitude towards her was very different, his strength was not to be underestimated. If this person joined, the chances of their yin and yang divine sect entering the door of darkness to obtain treasures would greatly increase. On the other hand, Xingxinglan was very displeased by Zhuowen's unusual attitude towards Yarou Shangjuan, but he did not dare to show it on his face. Since that's the case, I'll go with you to the door of darkness, Zhuowen said. Yarou Shangjuan was naturally wild with joy, and Xingxinglan and Wen Yatong naturally did not dare to object. After making this decision, Zhuowen successfully joined the team, and Xingxinglan, as the leader, brought the three of them towards the door of darkness in the depths of the ancient city of darkness. In one of the camps of the door of darkness, 7 or 8 mermen covered in scales knelt on one knee in front of an old merman, trembling. The old merman was the leader of the team sent out by the mermen this time, Mda. At this moment, Mda's expression was very ugly. He looked coldly at the 7 or 8 mermen kneeling in front of him and said in a low voice, "You said that Sauron left alone to seek revenge after learning that Li Yang was killed. Why didn't you stop them? Elder Mda, Sir Sauron is very stubborn, and we don't dare to disobey his orders. We have already suggested that we follow him, but Sir Sauron said there was no need, so." A merman trembled as he spoke. Mda kicked this merman to the ground and threw out a shattered jade slip. He said in exasperation, "Sauron's life jade slip shattered just now. What?" The 7 or 8 mermen kneeling on the ground turned ghastly pale as they stared blankly at the shattered jade slip on the ground. They knew very well what this shattered jade slip meant. Sauron had already fallen. But how was this possible? Sauron was one of the top geniuses of the merman race, and his battle strength ranked in the top 3 among the younger generation of the merman race. Moreover, he had a special bloodline and enjoyed great prestige among the 10 major races. Even human masters of creation would find it difficult to kill such a genius unless they were at the pinnacle of the master of creation realm or above. However, in the dark ancient city, such experts were basically the strongest of the major forces. They were basically gathered in front of the door of darkness, so how could they appear in the periphery of the dark ancient city? I only went to the Phoenix people to pay a visit to the Saintus. How could something like this happen? How should I punish you? Sauron's position in the clan is not ordinary, but he died here. When the clan leader asks about it, even I might be punished. You all deserve to die. The old merman was exasperated. The kneeling mermen all became silent, having nothing to say. They knew that they were finished. Eldamdar, what should we do now? The merman asked carefully. There's a heaven-span grand formation inside the door of darkness. Any cultivator above the Lord of Creation realm is basically unable to enter. Only those below the Lord of Creation realm are qualified to enter. Originally, with Sauron's strength, he could enter the door of darkness and find the body of ancestor sorcerer Gonggong. He would definitely be able to obtain a lot of ancestor sorcerer blood essence. However, all of this is ruined now. When we return to the merman tribe, all of you will enter the merman lake to receive your punishment. Mda's tone was cold and merciless. The 7 or 8 mermen kneeling on the ground turned pale and their bodies went limp. Entering the merman lake meant certain death. It looked like they were dead meat. Along the way, Zhuowen learned a lot about the major forces of the alliance in front of the Door of Darkness from Xingxinglan and the other two. 80% of the Dao Palace forces in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain had basically come. Among them, the 5 Dao Palace forces of the host region had all sent their experts. Among the 10 major foreign races, 7 of them had sent their experts. The mermen were one of them. However, the team sent by the foreign races was not very strong. Even the leader was only a master of creation. However, the foreign races had unique talents and powerful physical bodies. Their strength was originally stronger than human cultivators. Although they had only sent a master of creation as the leaders of the Dao Palace forces in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain did not dare to casually touch them. After all, once they did, it would be very troublesome. It would escalate from a personal conflict to a conflict between forces. What shocked Zhuowen the most was that the Phoenix people of the 10 major races had also come. It was said that even the Phoenix people's saintess had followed the team sent by the Phoenix people this time. She wanted to obtain the ancestor sorcerer Gonggong's blood essence to evolve her own bloodline. Zhuowen's breathing quickened. He was very excited. When Mu Chunxue had awakened the 99 Phoenix body, she had been brought back to the primitive heavenly domain by the Phoenix people's experts. With Mu Chunxue's terrifying bloodline, Zhuowen knew that she would definitely become the Phoenix people's saintess. In other words, Mu Chunxue should have come to the dark ancient city as the Phoenix people's saintess. Thinking that he would be able to see Mu Chunxue soon, Zhuowen was very excited. He had been separated from Mu Chunxue for many years. It was said that absence made the heart grow fonder. This time, they had been separated for a long time. When Zhuowen was wandering alone, he would often think of Mu Chunxue. If not for the fact that Zhuowen's strength was too weak, he would have already traveled from the Xian-Mi heavenly domain to the primitive heavenly domain to the Phoenix people to find Mu Chunxue. Now that he was able to meet Mu Chunxue in the dark ancient city, it was a pleasant surprise. Yarou Xiangjuan found that when she mentioned the Phoenix people's saintess, this senior Long Wen's eyes shone with an inexplicable emotion. She secretly guessed that this person might know the Phoenix people's saintess. However, she quickly discarded this idea. The Phoenix people were a large clan in the primitive heavenly domain. Moreover, the primitive heavenly domain and the Xian-Mi heavenly domain were like fire and water. When human cultivators entered the primitive heavenly domain, they would be surrounded and killed by many foreign races. It was basically impossible for them to survive. Conversely, foreign races entering the Xian-Mi heavenly domain also faced the same fate. She didn't believe that this Long Wen in front of her would have the opportunity to know the Phoenix people's saintess. About half a day later, under the guidance of Xingxinglan, the group of 4 arrived at an incomparably huge open space. This open space was surrounded by a hazy black qi. At the front of the open space, an incomparably huge black stone door stood quietly, connecting the heavens and the earth. This stone door was tens of thousands of feet high, piercing through the clouds. It was so majestic that it was difficult to see the top. The surface of the stone door glowed with a sparkling and translucent luster, as if it was forged from black jade. Zhuowen looked from afar, but he could clearly feel that this stone door was emitting an ancient and vicissitude aura. This is the Door of Darkness. Zhuowen pointed at the huge door in the distance that was faintly discernible in the black qi. Yes, we are very close to the Door of Darkness. The dangers near the Door of Darkness have all been dealt with by the Alliance. The surroundings are very safe, Yarou Xiangjuan replied. In another 6 hours, we will be able to reach the Alliance's encampment, Xingxinglan interrupted. Chapter 2943. Triple kill. Yarou Xiangjuan cried out in surprise at Zhuowen's sudden action. She struggled with all her might and was furious. The young man in front of her was actually so impudent. Let go of me. Don't think that you can do whatever you want to me just because you're stronger than me. Yarou Xiangjuan glared at him. The energy in her body surged as she tried to break free from Zhuowen's embrace. Zhuowen grunted. He didn't expect Yarou Xiangjuan to suddenly explode with power to attack him. He was caught off guard and was hit squarely. His face paled slightly as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Yarou Xiangjuan was stunned. She didn't expect the young man in front of her to be so unguarded against her. She knew very well that with this person's strength, if he really used violence to imprison her, it would be a piece of cake. However, he didn't do that. Soon, Yarou Xiangjuan knew why the young man suddenly hugged her and quickly retreated. It was because dozens of blood-red sword rays had suddenly appeared where she was just now. Each ray carried a murderous aura. With her strength, it was extremely difficult for her to block even one of them. If she was hit by these dozens of blood-red sword rays, she would definitely die. Ah! While Yarou Xiangjuan was stunned, a scream broke her out of her daze. Dozens of blood-red sword rays had also appeared in the void around Wen Yatong, who was not far away. The pitiful Wen Yatong only had time to scream once before she was shattered by the blood-red sword rays. She had completely died. Junior sister Wen, Yarou Xiangjuan looked at Wen Yatong's miserable fate and couldn't bear to see it. Xing Xinglan's situation was similar to Wen Yatong's. However, Xing Xinglan's cultivation was the highest among the three of them. He took out a blue seal divine weapon and barely blocked the blood-red sword rays that had suddenly appeared in the void. However, Xing Xinglan's situation was very bad. He kept coughing up blood and the light on the surface of the blue seal became dimmer. It was obvious that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. "Brother Long, save me." Xing Xinglan spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt his body weakening and was shocked. He hurriedly asked Zhuowen for help. Zhuowen stomped his right foot, and a terrifying airwave erupted in the void. He appeared beside Xing Xinglan as if he had teleported. He lifted him up and put him into the great world. Although there were a lot of Zhuowen's secrets in the outside world, with Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxie guarding it, as well as the Thunderfire Sword, Blood Immortal Sword, and Sacrificial Death Sword, Zhuowen was not afraid of Xing Xinglan messing around. "Senior, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you just now. Are you alright?" Yarou Xiangjuan knew that just now Zhuowen was trying to save her, but she actually injured him without knowing why. This was clearly repaying kindness with enmity, and she felt very ashamed in her heart. "Don't worry, it's just a minor injury. Enter my great world first. When it's safe, I'll let you out." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he kept Yarou Xiangjuan into his macro world. Bang bang bang! While Zhuowen and Yarou Xiangjuan were talking, dozens of attacks swept over from the void and blasted toward Zhuowen. Because Zhuowen was delayed, he did not have time to dodge and could only choose to take them head-on. Zhuowen's body emitted a sparkling light. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and he suddenly blasted it into the void, colliding head-on with the dozens of blood-colored sword lights that swept over. Zhuowen's fist strength was so terrifying that it blasted the dozens of blood-colored sword lights into powder in one fell swoop. It immediately blasted into the interior of the void, transcending time and space. But he soon found that the attacker in the void began to flee the moment he blasted out the attack. His punch had no effect. "Want to escape? Do you think it's that easy?" Zhuowen snorted coldly. He stomped his right foot and completely entered the void. Although he did not see the attacker's face clearly, he had already guessed that it should be the Blood Prison assassins who launched the surprise attack just now. And it was not just one, but many of them, all of whom were masters. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. The Blood Prison assassins had provoked him again and again, making him really angry. This time, he must kill the Blood Prison assassins to the point where even the Blood Prison assassins would feel heartache. Chasing all the way, he soon came to a very unstable dark space in the depths of the void. There were no stars in this space, nor any light source, and even the heavenly Tao laws were somewhat incomplete. The moment Zhuowen entered this space, Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He felt a powerful spirit array aura inside. Obviously, the Blood Prison assassins just now were trying to lure him in. The real killing move was inside. Zhuowen retreated quickly, but soon found that a very violent energy was blasting toward him. This energy made Zhuowen's face change. It was extraordinarily powerful. Bang! Zhuowen punched out. With a rumble, he felt a powerful force coming from his fist, and he involuntarily took a few steps back. As for the owner of the attack, he let out a muffled groan and retreated more than 10 steps, looking at Zhuo in shock. Only then did Zhuo see the attacker's face clearly. It was a middle-aged man with a square face, wearing a very loose blood-red robe. Zhuo also noticed the word 3 on the middle-aged man's sleeve. He knew that this should be the blood prison assassin. Assassin's strength was not bad, and he was stronger than assassin. He should be a half-step lord of creation. Assassin's eyes were full of shock. He looked at the young man in front of him in disbelief. He had actually been at a disadvantage in the exchange just now. No matter how he looked at this guy, his aura was only that of the profound theory lord. How could he be so powerful? How did he do it? Assassin's eyes were solemn, and killing intent surged in his heart. He finally knew why assassin and assassin had been defeated by this kid. When he thought of this kid's terrifying strength, assassin knew that he had to get rid of him this time. Otherwise, the blood prison would have endless troubles coming one after another. After all, this kid was only the profound theory lord, and he already had such strength. If he was given enough time to advance to the eternal overlord realm, or even step into the third step of Tao confirming, no one in the blood prison would be able to stop him. At that time, the blood prison would most likely be destroyed. Traceless blood, set up the blood-splashing limitless formation. Assassin roared and quickly retreated. As soon as he finished speaking, the air in the surrounding space became very heavy, and a terrifying energy filled the air. Zhuowen's face turned ugly. He quickly retreated, but assassin was like a maggot in his bones, tightly entangling Zhuowen. "You're courting death." Zhuowen was enraged. He used the profound meaning, heaven and earth perishing, and used both hands to perform the tyrannical Tao slaughtering technique. He suddenly blasted out, and a destructive energy shot out from his hands. Assassin's eyes narrowed. He was forced to retreat again and again, coughing up blood. His injuries were getting more and more serious, and his heart sank. He knew that he had underestimated Zhuowen's strength. Now, he was completely in a passive position. He knew that he would be defeated in less than 100 rounds. Fortunately, he was cautious by nature and had brought the blood-splashing limitless formation. If he had come alone, he would have died without a doubt. Poochie. Zhuowen punched out, twisting and breaking Assassin's arms. His fist energy then slammed into Assassin's chest. Chapter 2944. Blood-splashed Senluo formation triple kill's face was pale and he was terrified. The moment he was sent flying, he immediately used his body movement to escape. He wanted to get away from Zhuowen. Traceless Xue, hurry up with the formation. If you don't hurry up, I will die. Triple kill roared, his voice trembling. He sensed the threat of death and began to urge Traceless Xue. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Beams of blood-red light shot out from the surrounding void. These beams of blood-red light were full of killing intent and terrifying power. In the surrounding void, countless beams of blood-red light began to intertwine, forming a blood-red boundary. The moment the blood-red boundary was formed, countless shadows of blood-red swords appeared at the edge of the boundary. The shadows of blood-red swords were so dense that it was as if there were no blood-red swords around. Zhuowen punched out and hit the first shadow of a blood-red sword in front of him. He was shocked to find that his fist had been hit by the shadow of a blood-red sword. Although the wound was not big, only about half an inch, and it was not deep, Zhuowen was really shocked. His body was at the peak of the 5-star Pangu sacred body. It could be said that it was the strongest body in this starry sky. Although it had not been cultivated to the peak, it was not something that the alien races in the untainted heavenly realm could compare with. The sword shadow formed by the formation did not seem to be very powerful. However, the moment Zhuowen collided with it, he found that the shadow of the blood-red sword was like liquid. It melted into the part of his body that was in contact with it and then caused a small explosion inside. It could be said that the attack of the shadow of the blood-red sword was not from the outside. Instead, it was like the spring rain that moistened things silently. It melted into the body and rushed out from the inside. If Zhuowen's body had not been strong enough, The moment the shadow of the blood-red sword entered his fist, it would have been suppressed by the pressure of the Pangu sacred body. It would have been unable to enter the depths of his body through his blood. Zhuowen knew very well that if the shadow of the blood-red sword had entered the depths of his body through his blood, he would have suffered more than just a small injury. His internal organs would have been bleeding. Even if the Pangu sacred body was extraordinary, if the Pangu sacred body directly injured his internal organs, it would be a very serious injury. Although the Pangu sacred body had a powerful self-healing ability, it required a lot of energy time-space. Happy Island. Seeing that kill in front of triple kill was getting closer, Zhuowen knew that it would be unrealistic to chasing him. Once he escaped from the boundary, Zhuowen knew that it would be unrealistic if he continued to chase after him. When he thought of this, Zhuowen no longer held back. Instead, he began to use the three profundities: sky-splitting blade, mysterious light of creation, and death of heaven and earth. The mysterious light of creation emitted a milky white light. It appeared around Zhuowen, forming a milky white armor. Of course of world of heaven of earth of heaven of heaven of n of his of on the other hand, heaven and earth annihilation used destructive energy to surround Zhuowen, amplifying his strength. Moreover, it allowed Zhuowen's every move to contain a terrifying destructive power. Using the three profound meanings at the same time, Zhuowen's combat strength underwent an earth-shattering change. He was like a peerless god of war. Bang bang bang! The blood sword shadow's attacking method was indeed strange. It could enter the human body through the skin and create a terrifying destructive energy. However, the power of Upanishad inside the Pan-Jiyu banner was definitely the strongest power in this universe. No matter how strange the blood sword shadow was, it could not break the power of Upanishad inside the Pan-Jiyu banner. What? This guy? 3 kills stared in disbelief at Zhuowen, who remained unscathed under the countless blood swords and sword shadows. His eyes widened. He was well aware of the power of the blood splatter limitless formation, especially the characteristics of the attacks unleashed by the blood splatter limitless formation. It was absolutely a nightmare for most cultivators. He had thought that the dense blood swords could stop the young man in front of him. He did not expect that he had been overthinking. Zhuowen was also a little surprised. The 3 profound meanings were very effective against the blood splatter limitless formation. The strange blood sword shadow basically had no effect on Zhuowen. When the blood sword shadow touched the surface of his light of creation, it basically collapsed into a bloody mist and disappeared into the air. Traceless blood. What are you doing? Stop this guy. Seeing Zhuowen getting closer and closer, 3 kills' pupils shrank. He quickly sent a voice transmission to Traceless blood. All of a sudden, the countless blood sword phantoms in the barrier collapsed into blood light. The blood light was like a wriggling viscous liquid, and it began to gather together. Finally, it formed a blood wave that blotted out the sky. The blood-red waves surged, containing an extremely terrifying murderous aura and tyrannical energy. It was much more terrifying than the dense blood swords from before. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He formed a sky blade with both hands and slashed out as if he was going to cut down the entire sky. Whoosh! The sound of cloth tearing was heard. Immediately, the rolling bloody wave was split into 3 parts by the sky blade. However, the moment the blood-colored wave was split apart, layers upon layers of blood-colored waves continued to surge forward. They were endless, one after the other. Zhuowen's hands moved as fast as lightning. The sky-splitting blade in his hands was like a crazy meat grinder, cleaving apart the scarlet wave that was coming at him layer by layer. When Zhuowen split the last bloody wave, he found that 3 kills had reached the edge of the boundary. Outside the edge of the bounded domain, a figure was helping 3 kills. Zhuowen also saw the figure clearly. He could not help but squint, because this figure was not unfamiliar to him. Traceless blood, Zhuowen muttered to himself. When 3 kills mentioned Traceless blood's name, he had already thought of it, but he was not sure. Now that Traceless blood had appeared in person to help 3 kills, he was completely sure. Speaking of which, when Zhuowen was in the 8 heavens, he had some connections with Traceless blood and had cooperated with him once. However, after Shui Wuhan broke free from the seal, He turned his back on Zhuo Wen and left the 8 heavens without saying a word about what Zhuo Wen had done. Of course, he also knew that he was too weak at that time. Traceless Blood was already an expert in the second step of the Dao validation realm. It would be strange if he could talk to a nobody like him. Zhuo Wen, you're dead. 3 kills walked out of the boundary after being helped by Traceless Blood. He glared at Zhuo Wen, who was in the formation, with undisguised pride on his face. Traceless Blood, who was standing beside 3 kills, looked at the young man in the formation with some doubts. The name Zhuo Wen was not unfamiliar to him. He remembered that there was a nobody in the 8 heavens called Zhuo Wen. However, Zhuo Wen's cultivation was too weak at that time, so he did not care. When he heard 3 kills tell him that the assassination target was Zhuo Wen in the blood prison, he was a little surprised. Now that he saw the so-called Zhuo Wen, he sighed softly in his heart. This person was not the same person as the Zhuo Wen in his impression. Of course, he was still very shocked. This young man called Zhuo Wen was really heaven-defying. The aura he revealed was only that of the Lord of Mystery, but his true strength was simply explosive. Chapter 2945. Breaking the Array. Zhuo Wen calmly looked at the smug expression on 3 kills' face. He took out the Huyi Divine Arrow and Huyi Divine Bow, and then pulled the bowstring to 2/3. Violent killing intent instantly exploded. You think I can't do anything to you just because you're outside the barrier? Zhuo Wen sneered, the veins on his hands bulging. With a shout, he pulled the bowstring to a full moon. His killing intent underwent a qualitative leap, breaking through the sky. The entire blood splatter limitless array shook because of this killing intent. Bang! The Huyi Divine Arrow shot out, forming a terrifying bloody light. Its power was condensed to the extreme, reaching a frightening level. Rumble! The Huyi Divine Arrow instantly landed on the edge of the barrier. Immediately, the entire barrier began to tremble violently, and countless cracks began to appear on its surface. What? 3 kills and Traceless Blood were dumbfounded. What was going on? In order to set up the blood splatter limitless array, they had prepared 108 elite assassins from the blood prison. Logically speaking, such a lineup should be more than enough to kill an early-stage Lord of Creation, but this boy had only shot a single arrow, and the blood splatter limitless array was already on the verge of collapsing. Lord 3 kills, run! Traceless Blood reacted extremely quickly and immediately retreated. 3 kills also reacted and rapidly retreated. 3 kills was, after all, much stronger than Traceless Blood, so the escape technique he used was also more brilliant. In an instant, he overtook Traceless Blood and fled. Catcher! Bloody light flashed, and the blood splatter limitless array completely shattered into countless pieces. Miserable screams rang out around the blood splatter limitless array. The blood prison elite assassins who had been arranged in the 108 positions of the array had all turned into dried corpses and fallen to the ground. They couldn't be more dead. The blood splatter limitless array was maintained by the blood essence of these elite assassins. Now that the blood splatter limitless array was broken, these elite assassins naturally couldn't survive. Zhuo Wen stood in place, his face deathly pale. His arms couldn't withstand the terrifying killing intent from the Huyi Divine Bow and had already exploded into a bloody mist. This was the first time Zhuo Wen had used the Huyi Divine Arrow with the Huyi Divine Bow. When he pulled the bowstring to a full moon, the power was truly terrifying, but the price he had paid was not small. Ah! A tragic cry came from the void dimension's limitless void dimension. 3 limitless array, limitless blood splatter, limitless arrays, limitless divine arrow. To the limitless array. Limitless array, limitless array, limitless array, limitless, and limitless blood, limitless blood, limitless array, limitless. After Zhuo Wen's arms slowly healed, he went to the place where 3 kills had fallen. When he saw that there was nothing left, he sighed. It seemed that Huyi's godly arrow was too scary. 3 kills' spirit ring must have been destroyed. As for Traceless Blood, he had already escaped from this void dimension, and Zhuo Wen's divine sense couldn't detect him. Zhuo Wen sighed inwardly. If his arms had been injured, he would have been able to shoot another arrow and completely destroy Traceless Blood. After all, Traceless Blood was only an early-stage lord of creation. An ordinary arrow would have been enough to destroy him. Zhuowen didn't stay here for long. Although this was the void dimension, it was too close to the door of darkness. The aftermath of this battle should have been noticed by some people. Not long after Zhuowen left, several figures with extremely terrifying auras appeared in this void dimension. There were alien race and human cultivators among these figures. They were probably the powerhouses of this temporary alliance. It's the Blood Prison Assassins. 108 Blood Prison Assassins have been turned into corpses. 108. Could it be that the Blood Prison set up the Blood Splatter Limitless Array to kill someone? This is a forbidden technique of the Blood Prison. Who is the Blood Prison trying to kill this time? They even set up such a large array. Damn it, this place has been cleaned up. We can't find any trace of the murderer at all. These several powerful figures conversed for a while. After discovering that they couldn't find the murderer's trace, they left this void dimension. After Zhuowen left the void dimension, he found a rather remote ruin and released Xing Xinglan and Yarou Shangjuan from the Great World. Senior, are you okay? As soon as Yarou Shangjuan appeared, she looked at Zhuowen with concern in her beautiful eyes. Her gaze was also filled with guilt and worry. Obviously, Yarou Shangjuan was still blaming herself for her biting the hand that fed her just now. When Xing Xinglan saw that Yarou Shangjuan was so concerned about Zhuowen, a trace of resentment flashed in the depths of his eyes. However, his face was full of gratitude. It's okay. It's just a small injury, Zhuowen said indifferently. Xing Xinglan hurriedly flattered, Senior is indeed very brave. Even the Blood Prison's triple kill and the Blood Splatter Limitless Array couldn't do anything to you. Xing Xinglan naturally didn't think that Zhuowen had broken the Blood Splatter Limitless Array and triple kill. He thought that Zhuowen was just lucky and escaped. Even so, Xing Xinglan was indeed very shocked. The Blood Splatter Limitless Array was a forbidden technique of the Blood Prison. He had long heard of this. Moreover, he also knew that the Blood Prison's previous sect master had once used this Blood Splatter Limitless Array to kill a powerhouse at the initial stage of the Heaven Ascension stage. It was because he knew how terrifying the Blood Splatter Limitless Array was that Xing Xinglan was so shocked when he found out that Zhuowen had escaped. Yes, my luck is indeed good. Zhuowen didn't open his mouth to correct Xing Xinglan. After all, the latter was just a clown to him. He didn't need to explain this kind of thing to a clown. Now, lead the way to your Heaven and Earth Divine Sects team, Zhuowen said indifferently to Xing Xinglan. Xing Xinglan didn't dare to disobey. He cupped his hands and answered, yes. Then, he led Zhuowen and Yarou Shangjuan toward the door of darkness in the distance that was shrouded in black qi. In the open space in front of the door of darkness, there were two groups of cultivators who had drawn a clear line and occupied one side of the door of darkness. On one side were the human cultivators, and on the other side were the powerhouses of the foreign tribes. Where the human cultivators were, they were basically sitting cross-legged on praying mats. All of them were calm and composed. Where the powerhouses of the foreign tribes were, however, was very different. Instead, there were small animal skin tents set up one after another. Each animal skin tent represented the power of a foreign tribe. When Zhuowen and the other two arrived in front of the door of darkness, this was the scene that he saw. On the side where the human cultivators were, Zhuowen immediately saw the sect master of the 10 Ultimate Yin Corpse sect, Senki Yin, and the team that he led. Chapter 2946. Heaven and Earth Divine Sectuan quickly turned his gaze to the side where the foreign races were. His eyes fell on a beast skin tent and his heart began to beat fast. He could not hide his excitement. There was a flag with a phoenix pattern on the top of the beast skin tent. He knew that this beast skin tent was where the phoenix people were stationed. Chen Shui, Zhuowen muttered. After knowing that the phoenix people's saintess had come, Zhuowen could not calm down for a long time. Miss Yao, I heard that the Phoenix People's Saintess had also come. I wonder if you've seen her before? Zhuowen suddenly asked Yarou Shangjuan, who was beside him. Yarrow Xiangjuan shook her head and said, the Phoenix people's saintess had indeed come. However, the saintess wore a veil and rarely came out, so I've never seen her real face. However, I have heard that this holy maiden possesses a beauty that can captivate birds and beasts. She is so beautiful that the moon outshines the flowers. She has attracted the pursuit of many geniuses in the desolate heaven domain. In fact, many geniuses have even fallen in battle in order to win her heart. Zhuowen nodded. He was even more certain that the Phoenix people's saintess was Mu Chunxue. At the same time, his heart was filled with hatred. Zhuowen was very unhappy with the geniuses who were pursuing the saintess that Yarrow Xiangjuan had mentioned. If he saw them, he would cripple them. Xing Xinglan brought Zhuowen and Yarrow Xiangjuan to the open space where the human cultivators were. They arrived in front of one of the groups. There were not many people in this group, only around 17. Among them, Zhuowen paid the most attention to the leader of the group. This was a white-haired but energetic old man with a rosacea nose. He always had a smile on his face and gave people an amiable feeling. However, the terrifying aura that was faintly emitted from this old man made people not dare to approach him. They kept a respectful distance from him. A powerhouse at the early stage of the sky-piercing realm, Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. He could sense an aura similar to Senki Yin from this old man. He knew that this old man's strength wasn't any weaker than Senki Yin. In addition to this old man, there were two other people with extremely powerful auras. They were most likely half-step lords of Heavenspan. These three old men were most likely in charge of managing this group. As for the others, their auras were not particularly strong. They should be disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect. Sect leader, Xing Xinglan and Yarrow Xiangjuan hurriedly bowed to the old man, their eyes filled with reverence. From the looks of Xing Xinglan and Yarrow Xiangjuan, Zhuowen could tell that this red-nosed old man should be the sect master of the Yin and Yang divine sect. Senior, this is our Yin and Yang divine sect's sect master, and Xiaojin. He's a powerhouse at the initial stage of the master of heavenly passage. You should salute him with us. Yarrow Xiangjuan hurriedly reminded him when she saw that Zhuowen was indifferent. Zhuowen merely cupped his hands to Xiaojin. He didn't even bow. Yarrow Xiangjuan and Xing Xinglan were so frightened that they almost fainted. Big brother, this is the sect master of the Yin and Yang divine sect. He's considered a peak figure in the Xian Mi heavenly domain. You're actually saluting him as an equal? Are you tired of living? And Xiaojin nodded. He noticed the scarred youth that Xing Xinglan had brought back, and a look of doubt appeared in his eyes. Although he wasn't happy that Zhuowen had saluted him as an equal, he didn't show it. Who are you? How bold of you to not kneel and salute our sect master. Before Xiaojin could speak, a youth with a sinister gaze slowly stood up and looked at Zhuowen with an unfriendly expression. Zhuowen glanced indifferently at this youth. He found that the latter's cultivation wasn't bad. He was actually an early-stage lord of creation. Your sect master hasn't even said anything. What did you say? Zhuowen said indifferently. The youth was stunned at first. Then, he revealed a furious expression. He suppressed his anger and said, "Who do you think you are? You dare to lecture me?" Zhuowen couldn't be bothered with this youth. Instead, he looked at Xiaojin and cupped his hands. Sect Master N, I was invited by Miss Yarrow to help you enter the door of darkness and fight for the witch ancestor's blood. You, and Xiaojin's expression was strange. This youth in front of him was only the sect master of mystery. Who gave him the courage to use the Yin and Yang divine sect's name to enter the door of darkness? He even shamelessly said that he would help them fight for the witch ancestor's blood. Big brother, please, can you have some self-awareness? With your cultivation, you're trash. I'm afraid you'll be destroyed as soon as you enter the door of darkness. Where did you get the confidence to make such a request to us? The youth with the sinister gaze was furious. He said to Xiaojin, Sect Master, this is an arrogant person. He's simply here to cause trouble. Please allow me to teach this arrogant person a lesson. Xiaojin glanced indifferently at Zhuowen, nodded, and sat cross-legged on the futon again. He also felt that this person was an arrogant person. He wasn't even interested in talking to him. Yarrow Xiangjuan was a little anxious. She hurriedly stopped the youth and said, "Senior brother, if you attack, someone will die. Junior sister, don't worry. Since this person came with you and junior brother Xing, I won't kill him. I'll just cripple him. I'll let him know how pathetic and foolish it is to be arrogant without strength." Seeing Yarrow Xiangjuan stop him, the youth's eyes were filled with infatuation. It was obvious that this youth had a lot of feelings for Yarrow Xiangjuan. "No, if you attack, your life will be in danger." Yarrow Xiangjuan shook her head. "Gah," the youth's face stiffened. He looked at Yarrow Xiangjuan strangely and said, "Junior sister, did you say something wrong? Don't worry, this guy's cultivation isn't high. I won't kill him. It's true. This senior's battle strength is terrifying. If you go up, someone will die." Yarrow Xiangjuan continued to persuade with a serious expression. The youth was speechless. Everyone in the group. "Senior brother, junior sister Yarrow is right. There is indeed a gap between you and this person. Cough, cough. It's best if you don't attack." Xinglan laughed dryly. What a joke. He'd seen the strength of this scarred youth with his own eyes. Although he knew that this senior brother of his was quite strong, he was just trash in front of this scarred youth. The youth's face became even darker. It was almost impossible to see his exact expression. A surge of anger surged in his heart. He felt that he was being looked down upon. "Are the two of you crazy? Get out of the way. I'll teach this person a lesson today." The youth snorted coldly. He went around Xinglan and Yarrow Xiangjuan, and with a stomp of his foot, he shot explosively towards Zhuowen with a ferocious smile. Originally, he didn't want to be heavy-handed, but Yarrow Xiangjuan and Xinglan's words angered him. He wanted to cripple this person. "Trash, master of profound secrets. How strong can you be? Watch me beat you into pieces." The youth was very arrogant. He flashed in front of Zhuowen, raised his right hand, and slapped towards Zhuowen's face. He wanted to ruthlessly humiliate this person. Slap. Chapter 2947. Reaching an agreement. Zhuowen's eyes were calm as he ignored the youth whose head was stuck in the ground. Instead, he stepped on the youth's body and slowly walked toward Xiaojin. The poor youth had been struggling with all his might and was about to pull his head out of the ground. However, Zhuowen's foot caused the youth to spit out a mouthful of blood. His head was stuck in the ground again, and it was even deeper than before. Everyone from the Yin and Yang divine sect was dumbfounded as they stared at this scene. What was going on? The youth was the second most powerful prodigy of the Yin and Yang divine sect's younger generation. He had only cultivated for a few thousand years, yet he was already an early-stage Genesis Lord. His battle prowess was astonishing. Now, such a prodigy had declared that he would teach a lesson to a cultivator from the profound secret sect. However, his head was still stuck in the ground, and he couldn't resist at all. Was he King kidding them? This defied common sense. On the other hand, Yarrow Xiangjuan and Xinglan were calm. They already knew Zhuowen's strength. This was a ruthless person who could even kill a prodigy like Sauron. To be honest, the youth was trash compared to Sauron. He couldn't even be compared to this youth in front of them. And Xiaojin looked at the youth in front of him with surprise. He hadn't expected the youth to be defeated so easily. "Sect Master An, I should be qualified to cooperate with your Yin and Yang divine sect now, right?" Zhuowen said with a faint smile. And Xiaojin didn't agree directly. Instead, he said indifferently, "If I'm not wrong, your main strength should come from your physical body, right? What kind of body tempering technique do you cultivate?" "Hihi, Sect Master An, I'm sincerely cooperating with you, yet you're asking about my privacy? If Sect Master An doesn't think it's possible, then I can find other forces to cooperate with." Zhuowen shook his head. He knew that Xiaojin was probably dissatisfied with his action of defeating the youth and wanted to suppress him. However, Zhuowen naturally didn't want to pay attention to Xiaojin. Although he hadn't caused much of a commotion when he had slapped the youth to the ground, it had attracted the attention of the cultivators in the nearby teams. As long as he revealed his intention to cooperate, he believed that the others would gladly accept. And Xiaojin was silent. Seeing that Zhuoan was really going to leave, he said, "If you are really willing to cooperate with our yin and yang divine sect, I will gladly accept. It's just that I was a little suspicious of your identity just now, so I asked about your cultivation method." Zhuoan looked at An Xiaojin and said, "Cult Master An, this world is so big, and there are all sorts of strange things. Geniuses aren't only in your great powers. There are also rogue cultivators. You're right, I'll cooperate with you." And Xiaojin nodded, but before he could finish, a furious roar came from nearby. The young man struggled to pull his head out of the ground. His face and ears were red, and there was a big bump on his forehead. He was in an extremely sorry state. At this moment, the gloomy youth was furious and had lost his mind. He recklessly rushed towards Zhuoan like a wild beast. "Bastard, I, Cao Kangcheng, am not finished with you today. If I don't destroy you, I will change my surname to yours." The gloomy youth roared angrily and even ignored An Xiaojin, who was standing behind Zhuoan. He just wanted to beat this young man to death. Bang! But in next to no time, the gloomy young man noticed to his astonishment that a large hand had blocked in front of Zhuowen, and then his attack was completely blocked. At the same time, a horrible force broke out, causing the gloomy youth to snort and retreat continuously. Fortunately, although this force was vast and horrible, it was obviously not intended to attack the gloomy youth, so he was not seriously injured. The gloomy youth came to his senses and looked at the figure standing beside Zhuoan. He was surprised and said hurriedly, "Cult Master, you," and Xiaojin said in a low voice, "Kangcheng, that's enough. This little brother is on our side. Don't disgrace me." The gloomy youth's face was ugly, but after all, An Xiaojin was the cult master of the yin and yang divine sect. He dared not disobey An Xiaojin's orders. "Haha. Since we are on the same side, let's keep harmony. By the way, little brother, what's your name?" An Xiaojin laughed like a spring breeze. "Just call me Long Wen," Zhuoan said. "So it's little brother Long Wen. Sit down first. It should be your first time at the Door of Darkness, right?" An Xiaojin said. Zhuoan nodded and said nothing. "Now, let me tell you about the Door of Darkness. It's like this." And Xiaojin took out a futon and placed it next to Zhuoan's seat. After indicating for him to sit down, he started to explain the situation at the Door of Darkness and what Zhuoan needed to do to cooperate with them. Through An Xiaojin's introduction, Zhuoan knew that there was a heaven-level array on the Door of Darkness. When the Alliance arrived at the Door of Darkness, the human practitioners and the powerhouses of the alien tribe joined forces to break the array. In the end, they found that it was impossible. It even caused the array to backfire and injure many masters and powerhouses. Because of this, the Alliance's powerhouses were basically blocked outside the Door of Darkness. However, they later found that although the restriction array on the Door of Darkness was powerful, it only targeted powerhouses above the Master of Creation level. The array formation on the Door of Darkness would not react to cultivators below the Master of Creation's cultivation level. Since cultivators below the Master of Creation level can pass through the Door of Darkness, why do I see that many cultivators who meet the requirements have not entered the Door of Darkness? Zhuowen had a puzzled look in his eyes. As soon as he'd entered this place, he'd noticed that there were many cultivators below the Lord of Creation among the human cultivators and outsiders, but none of them had entered the Door of Darkness. "Because we are all waiting for someone," An Xiaojin said in a low voice. "Waiting for who?" Zhuowen asked. "Waiting for the most powerful prodigies of the various factions to gather. The same goes for the alien tribe," An Xiaojin said. "I see." Zhuowen revealed a look of understanding. After entering this place, he had indeed seen many cultivators below the Master of Creation level. However, most of them were below the Master of Creation level, and only a small number of them were Masters of Creation. However, their auras were not particularly powerful, and there was a large gap between them and geniuses like Yi Chidong. Moreover, he had indeed not seen Yi Chidong, Shu Chen Shun, and the other freakish geniuses of the host region among the human cultivators. According to An Xiaojin's introduction, They had not planned to send their most powerful prodigies into the ancient city of darkness this time. Instead, they had sent their sect's powerhouses of the older generation. After all, the ancient city of darkness was fraught with danger. Although the sect's geniuses were exceptionally talented, they had cultivated for too short a time, and their strength was still lacking compared to the older generation's powerhouses. Chapter 2948. Doubt. However, the array formation on the door of darkness was too strange and caught the foreign and human cultivators off guard. The older generation of cultivators was basically at the creation realm and above, so they were not qualified to enter the door of darkness. As for ordinary creators, even if they entered the door of darkness, they would not gain much. They might not even obtain any treasures and might die inside. They did not want to miss out on the things inside the door of darkness, so they notified the powerful geniuses in their sects and asked them to come to the door of darkness, intending to let them enter and snatch the ancestral witch blood. It was the same for the foreign races. They were all notifying the geniuses in their respective races to come. Before all the geniuses arrived, the two sides had an agreement that no one could enter the door of darkness. Now, let's talk about cooperation. If you can obtain the ancestral witch blood for the yin and yang divine sect, I can accept you as my only disciple. Your status in the yin and yang divine sect is second only to mine. The other members of the team were shocked by An Xiaojin's offer. They felt that An Xiaojin's offer was too generous. On the other hand, Xing Xinglan and Cao Kangqing's expressions were not particularly good. Their eyes flickered, and no one knew what they were thinking. Zhuoan shook his head and said, "Sect Master N, I don't like to join forces. I like the undisciplined life of a rogue cultivator. If it were not for the fact that only cultivators recommended by the major forces of the Temporary Alliance could pass through the door of darkness, Zhuoan would not have cooperated with An Xiaojin. He would have waited for everyone to arrive before entering the door of darkness. However, he knew that this was not realistic. Rogue cultivators were even stopped at the entrance of the dark ancient city. If he wanted to enter the door of darkness under the eyes of so many powerful cultivators, he would be courting death. Therefore, he had no choice but to cooperate with the yin and yang divine sect. His goal was purely to get a spot. "Then what do you want?" An Xiaojin asked. "I promise that if I can find the ancestral witch blood, I will bring back a bottle for you, Sect Master. However, if I obtain any other treasures in the door of darkness, they must all belong to me. And after I leave the door of darkness, you must protect my life," Zhuoan said. An Xiaojin narrowed his eyes, his expression somewhat cold. Clearly, he felt that Zhuoan's conditions were somewhat harsh. His original plan was to give Zhuoan everything he had obtained from the door of darkness to him. He would then take Zhuoan as his last disciple and make Zhuoan a disciple of the yin and yang divine sect. He would also give Zhuoan a high position and recruit him. Little did he know that Zhuoan didn't buy it at all. Zhuoan rejected his request and only intended to give him a bottle of ancestral witch's blood. Seeing that An Xiaojin was hesitating, he pointed at the gloomy Cao Kangcheng and said, "Sect Master N, you saw it just now. This person is the strongest in your team, but in my opinion, he's nothing much. Not to mention the ancestral witch's blood, I'm afraid that I'll die in the door of darkness before I can even find the ancestral witch. However, I have the confidence to bring out the ancestral witch's blood for you." Cao Kangcheng burst into rage, but after he noticed An Xiaojin's cold gaze, he could only forcefully suppress his rage and said coldly, "Long Wen, I think you've made a mistake. I'm not the strongest genius in the sect. If senior brother Yi Hanfei was here, you wouldn't be so arrogant." Zhuoan raised his eyebrows. He had heard of Yi Hanfei's name before. When he went to the Starry Sky Tower, he saw this name on the Starry Sky contribution list in the Starry Sky Square. Yi Hanfei was ranked third on the Starry Sky contribution list, second only to Zhongli Hao Yang and Yi Chidong. He was a true genius. Cao Kangcheng saw Zhuoan's strange expression and his eyes were full of pride. He had been suppressed by this guy before, which made him feel very aggrieved. Now, he finally had a chance to make this guy suffer. The Yi Hanfei you mentioned might not be able to get the ancestral witch's blood, but I can guarantee it, Zhuoan said seriously. Zhuoan wasn't bragging. He was indeed confident. After all, his body had fused with 3 ancestral witches' venomous insects and cultivated the Pangu sacred body. He was very familiar with the ancestral witches' habits. He knew that even if he found the corpse of ancestral witch Gonggong and wanted to extract the blood essence, it would be very difficult for ordinary cultivators. However, it wouldn't be difficult for him. Can you guarantee it? And Xiaojin snorted. He also felt that Zhuoan was too arrogant. He knew more about the ancestral witch than anyone else and knew that the ancestral witch's blood was very difficult to extract. Even if they could find the ancestral witch's corpse, it would take a long time to extract it. Although everyone who entered the Door of Darkness was here for the ancestral witch's blood, he knew that it was very difficult for ordinary cultivators to extract the blood essence from the ancestral witch's flesh and blood. Therefore, when they found the ancestral witch's corpse, they would first rob it. Then, they would bring the flesh and blood back to the sect and slowly refine it to extract the blood essence from the flesh and blood. However, this process was very long. You are indeed bragging. Although the ancestral witch's body is huge, its structure is completely different from ours. Their flesh and blood are very complex and as tough as iron. It would take hundreds of years to extract a drop of blood essence. Cao Kangcheng sneered. Don't worry. If I can't bring back a bottle of ancestral witch's blood, I will let you do whatever you want with me. Zhuoan ignored Cao Kangcheng and looked at An Xiaojin. An Xiaojin looked deeply at Zhuoan. Since the other party had said so, he really had no reason to refuse. Don't underestimate a bottle of ancestral witch's blood. The ancestral witch was a starry sky creature that was born at the beginning of the starry sky. A drop of its blood essence had great effects. A bottle of ancestral witch's blood was definitely a priceless treasure. I agree to your conditions, but you have to remember your promise. And Xiaojin said lightly. Don't worry. Zhuoan nodded. Well, we still need to wait a few more days. After Yi Hanfei and the other geniuses have arrived, you can represent the Yin and Yang divine sect to enter the Door of Darkness. An Xiaojin said. While Zhuoan and An Xiaojin were talking about cooperation, Mda suddenly stood up in the tent of the merman tribe in the alien camp. Elder Mda, what's wrong? The merman standing next to him looked at Mda in surprise and confusion. I feel the fluctuation of the merman seal spell. Mda's voice was cold. What? Merman seal spell? Did Sir Sauron do it? The merman's eyes flashed coldly when he heard this. The merman seal spell was a taboo technique of the merman tribe. Moreover, only mermen with special bloodlines in the merman tribe could master it. Chapter 2949. Phoenix People's second elder. In other words, it would constantly weaken a cultivator's fortune. Once the fortune was exhausted, all the merfolk would know who the culprit was. At that time, the cultivator would be hunted down by all the merfolk, and they would not rest until the cultivator was dead. It could be said that this kind of spell technique was a curse that harmed others without benefiting oneself. In addition, the conditions for using it were very harsh, so very few merfolk used this kind of spell technique. Usually, only merfolk were unwilling to die before they died and used this kind of spell technique to curse the murderer so that they would die a horrible death. And now, Mda felt the aura of the merfolk seal curse. In other words, the cultivator who was cursed was nearby and was very likely the murderer who killed Sauron. Let's go. Follow me. Mda's eyes were spitting fire as he led 7 or 8 merfolk out of the tent aggressively and walked towards the human cultivator camp. Mda's actions naturally attracted the attention of the foreign race and human cultivators. Especially the human cultivators, their gazes were very vigilant as they looked at the aggressive Mda. Mda, what are you doing? In the Yin Corpse sect's camp, Sen Qinyin stood up and blocked Mu Die's path. Other than Senki Yin, the leaders of the other teams were also eyeing Mda covetously. Although they had formed a temporary alliance with the foreign race, the war between the human race and the foreign race had lasted for countless years. There was no trust between the two sides. If not for the Door of Darkness, the two sides would not have formed an alliance. Mda looked at Senki Yin with fear. Mda was only a master of creation and was far inferior to Senki Yin. If the leader of the merfolk race came, they would not be afraid of Senki Yin. Unfortunately, their leader did not come. However, Mda was not scared off by Senki Yin. This time, the foreign race had also sent several early-stage heaven ascension experts. He knew that Senki Yin would not dare to touch him. Our merfolk race's genius died outside the dark ancient city. I heard that he was killed by a human cultivator, Mda said coldly. Mda's words caused an uproar. Sauron of the merfolk race was very famous in this temporary alliance. It was said that he was from a foreign race with a special bloodline and had a place among the younger generation of the primitive heaven domain. Although Sauron's cultivation was only at the peak of the creator realm, he could fight with early-stage creation experts. He was a young expert on the same level as Yi Chidong and the other top geniuses of the human race. Such a genius from a foreign race had died in the outskirts of the ancient city of darkness, and at the hands of a human cultivator at that. Had a creation lord killed him? That. N. Zhuo Wen frowned slightly. Looking at Mu Da blocked by Sen Qian, he had a bad feeling. How did Mda confirm that Sauron's murderer was here? Sen Qian's eyes flashed with surprise, and he immediately said coldly, "So you think the murderer is among us? You don't have any evidence. How can you be sure?" Before Sauron died, he placed a shark seal curse on the murderer. I can feel the aura of the shark seal curse. That's why I'm sure the murderer is here. Mda snorted and continued, "Or is Sect Master Sen trying to protect the murderer?" Senki Yin's eyes narrowed. "Elder Mda, I wouldn't have any objections if your merfolk patriarch spoke like this in front of me. But you don't have the right." Saying so, Sen Qian's powerful aura suddenly erupted from his body. Mu Da's face paled as he let out a muffled groan and involuntarily took a few steps back, glaring angrily at Sen Qian. However, soon, an old man with flames burning above his head walked over from the side of the outsiders. His powerful fire chi swept over and cancelled out Sen Qian's aura. Senki Yin's expression changed slightly. He looked at the old man with fear and said, "Phoenix People's second elder? Many thanks for your help, second elder." Mda quickly cupped his hands towards the old man, his eyes full of reverence. The flame-haired old man nodded at Mda, then looked at Senki Yin and said, "Sect Master Sen, as far as I know, Sauron did die in the hands of you human cultivators. Moreover, the shark seal curse is real. Mda didn't lie to you about this. I heard that the shark seal curse is real. As long as the blood of a merfolk powerhouse is smeared on the murderer, traces of the shark seal curse will appear. At that time, we'll know if it's the murderer or not." As soon as the Phoenix People's second elder appeared, Senki Yin fell silent. The second elder was a true expert of the Phoenix people. He possessed the Phoenix bloodline. Although his cultivation was the same as Senki Yin's, at the early stage of the Heaven Ascension Master Realm, he was much stronger than Senki Yin. It could be said that these two elders could be considered the true strongest experts in the alien army. Although the number of early-stage Transcendence Realm experts sent by the aliens was not as many as that of the human race, these two elders alone could take on 3 or even 4 Transcendence Realm experts without any problem. "Everyone, let's not be so friendly. We're now in an alliance. It's better not to be so hostile. We haven't even entered the door of darkness and we're already fighting. That's very unwise." Another middle-aged man walked out from the human cultivator's side. This middle-aged man had fair skin and was extremely handsome, like a woman. However, this person's aura was also very powerful, almost on par with Senki Yin. He was also an early-stage Heaven Ascension Master. This person is Sect Master Xiong Puyu of the Scarlet Firmament Sword Tower, the strongest Dao Palace faction in the Western Dao domain. He's also an early-stage Heaven Ascension Master. His strength is not ordinary, Yarou Xiangjuan whispered when she saw Zhuowen's puzzled expression. Zhuowen nodded and cast a grateful look at Yarou Xiangjuan. "Sect Master Xiong, I also want to be friendly. However, Sauron is dead, and he was killed by a human cultivator for no reason. Also, our merfolk race's Li Yang and 5 other elites died in that person's hands. Do you think I can still be friendly?" Mdar's gaze was cold and his tone was very unfriendly. Now that he had the support of the second elder of the Phoenix people, he was much more confident. How about this, Elder Mdar? You can come here and look. However, if you can't find the culprit, then you're slandering the human race without permission. What will you do then? Seong Puyu was all smiles, but his words were not polite. Mdar frowned and immediately said, "If I really sensed wrongly, then I apologize to you." Seong Puyu and Senki Yin looked at each other and nodded. Senki Yin said, "Elder Mdar, then you can come and check. I hope you'll properly apologize to us later." Mdar sneered and did not answer. Instead, he followed his senses and walked towards the depths of the human cultivators. Chapter 2950. Confrontation. At this moment, all the cultivators of the human and foreign races followed Mdar's gaze and landed on the young man. The young man had 2 scars on his face, and his gaze was calm. He sat cross-legged on a praying mat, unmoving like a mountain. Could it be that the Merfolk elder thinks this person is the culprit? No way, this guy is just the Lord of Profound Secrets. Is this Mdar deliberately provoking us? Sauron's matter is just a lie fabricated by this old man. The surrounding people discussed animatedly, and their gazes toward Mdar became unfriendly. Senki Yin and Seong Puyu both frowned. The moment they saw the young man with the scars, they also thought Mdar was deliberately stirring up trouble. However, although the Phoenix people's second elder's gaze flickered, he didn't say anything to stop it. He knew the Merfolk seal better than anyone else. Since Mdar could sense the aura of the Merfolk seal, it meant that the cultivator carrying the Merfolk seal was nearby. Mdar looked coldly at the young man in front of him and said somewhat hesitantly, "You have the aura of the Merfolk seal on your body. You killed Sauron, right?" Mdar was somewhat hesitant. The aura of the young man in front of him was too weak. He was just the Lord of Profound Secrets. He suspected that his senses were wrong. Sauron was a Merfolk genius with a special bloodline. If he was killed by a Lord of Creation powerhouse, he could still believe it. But in the end, it was just the Lord of Profound Secrets. How could he dare to believe this? This result even made him doubt his life. However, he did indeed sense the aura of the Merfolk seal on this person, which was why he asked this question. He knew that the aura of the Merfolk seal definitely wasn't a fluke. There had to be a reason. Perhaps this person was related to Sauron's murderer. Zhuoan looked calmly at Mdar and said indifferently, "What do you think?" Mdar narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at the young man in front of him. He was surprised that this person could be so calm. Ordinary lords of Profound Secrets would tremble in fear when facing a Lord of Creation powerhouse like him. The better ones would just pretend to be calm. However, he found that this person was terrifyingly calm, as if he didn't care about him. "What do you mean you think? I'm asking you a question." Mdar's expression did not look too good. He no longer held back the aura in his body, completely suppressing the youth in front of him. However, the moment Mdar's aura rushed out, it was scattered by another powerful aura. Moreover, this aura was much stronger than Mdar's. The latter could not help but stagger and take a few steps back. He looked fearfully at the red-nosed old man behind Zhuoan. The leader of the Yin and Yang divine sect, and Shaojin? Mu Da frowned slightly and continued, "Sect Master An, I remember that this person isn't a disciple of your Yin and Yang divine sect, right?" "Now it is," and Shaojin's eyes were cold, showing no signs of weakness. The reason why he suddenly erupted with his aura was not only because Zhuoan had reached an agreement with him, but also because of Mdar's words. He had also heard of the shark seal curse. Since this kid had the shark seal curse on him, it was very likely that Sauron had been killed by him. His guess was not baseless. Just now, when this young man defeated Cao Kangcheng with a single move, he knew that this young man's strength far surpassed Cao Kangcheng's. Adding on the fact that this young man had the shark seal curse on him, he knew that this young man might really have killed Sauron. Thinking of this, and Shaojin looked at Zhuoan in a new light. Sauron's strength was very terrifying, and he was definitely ranked among the top of the younger generation in the Great Desolate Heaven domain. Although he was still inferior to the top few monstrous geniuses in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain, it was enough to look down on the majority of the younger generation. If this young man really had the strength to kill Sauron, and Xiaojin was even more willing to cooperate with this young man and protect him. After all, a genius with such strength entering the door of darkness would increase the competitiveness of their yin and yang divine sect. Mda's expression was not good, but he did not speak. The leader of the yin and yang divine sect, and Xiaojin, was also an early-stage sky-piercing lord expert and was much stronger than him. He did not dare to challenge such an existence. For a moment, the atmosphere became subtle and awkward. Haha. Sect Master An, I still believe in Mda's character. He will not casually accuse others. How about this? In order to prove whether or not this person has the shark seal curse, why don't we use the method I just mentioned to verify it? The awkward atmosphere lasted for a while before the second elder of the Phoenix people laughed and walked forward to mediate. When the second elder of the Phoenix people arrived, Mda heaved a sigh of relief, but An Xiaojin's gaze became serious. This elder's cultivation was the same as his, at the early stage of sky-piercing lord, but his strength was much stronger than his. After all, he was a foreign race with the Phoenix bloodline and was blessed by the heavens. At the same time, Xiong Puyu and Senki Yin also came forward and curiously sized up Zhuoan. Both of them were early-stage sky-piercing lords, so they could naturally tell that this young man in front of them was in disguise. Especially Senki Yin, who frowned slightly. He felt that this young man gave him a familiar feeling. However, Senki Yin did not particularly care. Since this person had some relationship with An Xiaojin, his background should not be low. Perhaps he had seen him in the Heaven and Earth Divine sect before. Senki Yin and Xiong Puyu were mainly curious about why this young man in front of them had the shark seal curse on him. Could it be that this young man had really killed Sauron? Of course, the two of them did not believe this conjecture at all, because it was just nonsense. They had both seen Sauron's strength. Even an early-stage creator might not be able to defeat him. This master of mystery was 2 major realms lower than a creator, and he was also from one of the 10 major races, the mermaid race. Wanting to kill Sauron 2 major realms above him was simply inconceivable, and Xiaojin frowned slightly. He did not expect the second elder of the Phoenix people to stand up for Mda. He did not fear Mda, but the second elder of the Phoenix people could not help but be apprehensive. This was a true expert. Sect Master An, is my face not enough? The second elder of the Phoenix people said somewhat unhappily. And Xiaojin was in a difficult position. He guessed that this young man was very likely Sauron's murderer. If he let Mda confirm it, this young man would definitely be confirmed. At that time, it would be difficult for him to say anything. After all, he was in the wrong. Yarou Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes revealed a nervous expression. She knew that Zhuoan was indeed Sauron's murderer. Since Mda was so sure, it meant that Sauron had done something to Zhuoan's body. Xing Xinglan's eyes revealed a hint of schadenfreude. Chapter 2951. Verification. Da sneered at Zhuoan and said, "Arbitrary? You have no proof. Let me tell you, our merfolk race is very sensitive to the shark seal curse. You do have this smell on you, and you still want to quibble? If you really aren't the murderer, you can let me verify it." Everyone looked at Zhuoan, obviously waiting to see how he would answer Mda. To be honest, most people didn't quite believe that this person was Sauron's murderer, including Mda himself and the 2 elders. If Mda hadn't sensed the shark seal curse on this person, he definitely wouldn't have suspected him. Now, he planned to verify it. If this person really had the shark seal curse on him, then he would definitely take him away today and search his soul to see how he got hit by the shark seal curse. After all, this was only the Lord of Profound Secrets. The Heaven and Earth Divine sect definitely wouldn't place too much importance on such a cultivator. When the time came, he would at most pay a portion of the price. I can let you verify it, but if the verification results show that I'm not the murderer, does that mean you're deliberately framing me? Zhuoan asked. Mda was stunned. He didn't expect this cultivator to be so confident and even ask him a question. This was unexpected, so he was stunned. If the results show that I'm wrong, then I'll apologize to you when the time comes, Mda said indifferently. Apologize? Zhuowen sneered and didn't answer. What? That's not enough. Mda looked at the sneering Zhuowen in astonishment. Far from enough. If I don't have the shark seal curse on me, then I want you to kneel on the ground, kowtow 3 times and kowtow 9 times, call me grandfather, and then apologize. Apart from that, I want the spirit ring in your hand as an apology, Zhuowen said calmly. When these words came out, the surroundings were in an uproar, and they all looked at Zhuowen in astonishment. They clearly didn't expect this Lord of Profound Secrets cultivator to be so awesome. With such a low cultivation, he actually dared to challenge a master of creation like Mda. Wasn't this a blatant provocation? Everyone looked at Mda and found that the latter's expression wasn't very good. What? Didn't Elder Mda confirm that I'm the murderer? Now you're scared. Since he was scared, there was no need to prove it. Although my cultivation is not as good as yours, I am still a member of the Yin and Yang divine sect. I am not someone you can easily manipulate, Zhuowen said. Mda's lungs were about to explode from anger. He didn't expect this mere Lord of Profound Secrets to be so arrogant, actually daring to negotiate terms with him. He was sure that this kid definitely had the shark seal curse on him. He was trying to provoke him to leave. But he wouldn't fall for it. If I've wronged you, I can agree to your condition. However, if I have not wronged you, you will have to come with me. Let me handle everything, Mda said. Sure. Zhuowen nodded. When Zhuowen agreed, and Xiaojin frowned slightly. He never expected that Zhuowen would actually agree to Mda's request to verify the mermaid seal. Was he courting death? Yarrow Xiangjuan's pretty face turned pale, and her delicate body trembled. She couldn't understand why Zhuowen would agree to this Mda. Rather, Xing Xinglan's gaze was dark, the corners of his mouth revealing a trace of a smile. He knew that this person was dead for sure. His IQ was really worrying, to actually really agree to Mda. This matter needs others to testify. I feel that Sect Master Sen, Sect Master Xiong, and Sect Master An can be witnesses. No one can go back on their word, Zhuowen said solemnly. Senki Yin and Xiong Puyu naturally had no objections. Rather, it was An Xiaojin's expression that was not too good. But he also knew that since this Zhuowen agreed, it was impossible to go back on his word. He could only agree. Then I'll have Second Elder do it on my behalf. I hope that when the time comes, when the mermaid seal curse is activated on your body, don't rely on other powerhouses to act shamelessly, Mda said. You too. Let's begin now, Zhuowen said very freely. Mda did not talk nonsense either. He cut open his thumb and dripped a drop of bright-colored blood essence on the back of Zhuowen's hand. The method to verify whether or not a cultivator had the mermaid seal curse was very simple. It required the blood essence of a mermaid powerhouse to be smeared on the back of the cultivator's hand. If this cultivator really did have the mermaid seal curse in his body, there would inevitably be traces of the mermaid seal curse on the back of the cultivator's hand. If not, there would not be any. Mda's blood essence dripped on the back of Zhuowen's hand, and he stared at the back of Zhuowen's hand. At the same time, Xiong Puyu, Senki Yin, and Xiaojin, and the second elder of the Phoenix people, as well as the other surrounding cultivators, all curiously looked at the back of Zhuowen's hand, waiting for the results to appear. After about 10 breaths of time, Mda's blood essence fused with the back of Zhuowen's hand, and nothing else happened. Mda was dumbstruck. What was going on? He clearly felt the aura of the mermaid seal curse on this child's body. Why was it that when he used his own blood essence to verify it, there were no traces of the mermaid seal curse? Could it be that he had sensed wrongly? Mda did not believe in heresy and once again cut open his already healed thumb. Fresh blood flowed out and dripped onto the back of Zhuowen's hand. Another 10 breaths of time passed, and there were no traces of the mermaid seal curse on the back of Zhuowen's hand. Mda was stunned. He did not believe in heresy and continued to use his blood essence, but he was stopped by Zhuowen. Elder Mda, your blood is too fishy. There's no need to try again. If you continue, I'm afraid I won't be able to take it, Zhuoan said with a disgusted expression. Hearing this, Elder Mda almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This guy is too disgusting. Try again. Mda's breathing was rapid, and his eyes were about to turn red. Enough. And Xiaojin spoke, stopping Mda, and continued, Elder Mda, you can't do it more than 3 times. You've already tried twice, and there are no traces of the mermaid seal curse. That means there is no mermaid seal curse on Long Wen's body. If you still want to try again, do you think we're all idiots? The expression of the Phoenix people's second elder was also not very good, and he gave Mda a cold glance. Originally, he intervened in this matter because their Phoenix people were currently cooperating with the Merfolk race. The 2 races even had a marriage alliance. If not for the cooperation, he could not be bothered to care about this Mda's business. He originally thought that this was just a small matter, showing up a little. After Mda finished dealing with it, he did not need to do anything and this Mda would owe him a favor. But he did not expect that he overreached himself now. Senki Yin and Xiong Puyu, the 2 people, also looked at Mda coldly. Although the 2 people did not know this scarred youth at all, they were all people of the same race after all. Their attitude toward other races was very consistent. The 3 great initial stage Heaven Ascension Lord powerhouses were all targeting him, making Mda's scalp tingle, and his expression was very ugly. He looked at the Phoenix people's second elder beside him. He knew that he could only rely on this Phoenix people's second elder now. The second elder coughed dryly and said with a faint smile, since it was Mda who made a mistake, then so be it. We won't disturb everyone anymore. Chapter 2952. Issue a challenge, I say, Elder Mda, what happened to your promise? You wrongly accused me and now you plan to leave. An indifferent voice sounded, causing Mda's figure to pause. Mda didn't say anything. Instead, it was the Phoenix race's second elder who smiled faintly and said, I say, human race's junior, one must judge the situation and size up the situation. Don't push your luck too far. Mda was just joking with you. The moment the second elder of the Phoenix people said this, the surrounding human cultivators went into an uproar, their eyes spitting fire. This second elder of the Phoenix people was too shameless. Mda had clearly promised to kneel down and apologize to his grandfather, and even offered his spirit ring. Now, he was going back on his word. Did he still have any face? Senki Yin, Xiong Puyu, and An Xiaojin's expressions weren't good. This was no longer a matter between Zhuoan and Mda, but a conflict between the human race and the foreign race. If the 3 of them let the second elder of the Phoenix people take Mda away so openly, wouldn't it prove that the human cultivators were afraid of the foreign race? Second elder, this joke isn't funny. This Mda said it himself. Do you want to just let it go like this? Senki Yin coldly snorted. What? Sect Master Sen wants to fight with me over such a small matter. The second elder of the Phoenix people turned around and looked at Senki Yin with raging flames in his eyes. His fiery hair burst out, and the surrounding temperature rose sharply. It was exceptionally terrifying. Senki Yin's expression was fearful. He didn't think that the second elder of the Phoenix people would be so shameless. He actually didn't distinguish between right and wrong and planned to turn hostile. Sect Master N, this person is from your Yin and Yang divine sect. You decide what to do. Senki Yin looked at An Xiaojin behind him. Xiong Puyu stood to the side and remained silent. An Xiaojin frowned slightly. He knew that Senki Yin and Xiong Puyu were planning to push all the responsibility for this matter onto him. He sighed and looked at Zhuoan. He secretly transmitted his voice, Long Wen. The strength of this second elder of the Phoenix people is very terrifying. Now that Mda is unable to verify the shark seal curse on your body, let's just forget about it. The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled up into a cold smile, yet he didn't answer An Xiaojin. Instead, he glanced at the surrounding human cultivators and said, Everyone, this is indeed a private matter of mine, and it might have nothing to do with all of you. But have you ever thought about what would happen if the one who was wrongly accused today wasn't me, but anyone here? He's just an elder of an alien race. How dare he barge into our human camp and accuse human cultivators of his own accord? That's one thing, but after making a mistake, he even went back on his word. Not only did he not apologize, he even acted as if nothing had happened. Do you think that's fair? If it were you, would you be able to bear it? Or, do you think we human beings should always be inferior to the non-human kind? Zhuowen's voice was getting louder and louder. The surrounding human cultivators all stood up in unison. Their eyes shone with an unprecedented light. Mda's actions just now had already aroused everyone's dissatisfaction and indignation. Now, Zhuowen's words were like a fuse that ignited a bomb, igniting everyone's emotions. The enmity between the human race and the non-human kind had been accumulating for a long time. Although they had temporarily formed an alliance, there were still some small conflicts in the dark. However, the matter was not blown out of proportion, so both sides did not say anything. But now, Mda had publicly accused a human cultivator. Moreover, after making a mistake, he even abandoned his apology and previous promise. He was simply a scum who looked down on the human race. The Phoenix people's second elder and Mda looked at the many human cultivators behind them blocking their path. Their expressions immediately became unsightly. While the human cultivators were blocking the Phoenix people's second elder and Mda, the non-humankind camp also stood up and released their terrifying aura without holding back. Sect Master Sen, Sect Master Xiong, and Sect Master An, are you human cultivators planning to break our alliance and declare war on us? The Phoenix people's second elder said with a cold gaze. Senki Yin was silent. He did not expect that youth to incite everyone. At this moment, if he came out to stop them, he would definitely be misunderstood. He would not take the blame for this. Xiong Puyu and An Xiaojin had also turned mute. They simply did not answer the question of the Phoenix people's second elder. Second elder, we have never declared war on you non-human kind. We have always hoped to cooperate with you, but you are not sincere. This Mda had a bet with Long Wen. In the end, Mda lost. Instead, he did not even apologize. Not to mention, he did not even hand over his spirit ring. Do you really think we human cultivators are easy to bully? And Xiaojin's eyes flickered as he coldly looked at the Phoenix people's second elder. Senki Yin and Xiong Puyu were still silent. It seemed that they did not want to get involved in this matter. The Phoenix people's second elder was so angry that he laughed. Sect Master An, it seems that you really don't understand the situation. You want to openly oppose us for a mere trash of the Lord of Profound Secrets. Yes, Sect Master An. This child is only the Lord of Profound Secrets. To us, he is just an ant. There is no need for you to protect him like this. How about this? I will take this child away. My merfolk race will give you enough compensation. Mda, who was standing beside the Phoenix people's second elder, also hurriedly replied. And Xiaojin was silent. He looked at Zhuowen and began to hesitate. Although Zhuowen had a cooperative relationship with him, he was still not a member of the Yin and Yang divine sect. Now that he had offended the Phoenix people's second elder for this child, it seemed that the gains did not make up for the losses. After An Xiaojin's silence, Mda cackled and looked at Zhuowen. His eyes were full of pride and disdain. He really did not take this Lord of Profound Secrets seriously. In his eyes, this was just a piece of trash. He felt that An Xiaojin knew the pros and cons. He definitely would not oppose a terrifying expert like the Phoenix people's second elder for this child. The instant An Xiaojin fell silent, Zhuowen suddenly walked out of the crowd and came in front of Mda and the Phoenix people's second elder. I say, Elder Mda, what will it take for you to apologize to me and hand over your spirit ring? Zhuowen said coldly, his eyes filled with killing intent. This Mda was really too shameless. Zhuowen's killing intent rose in his heart. Mda also saw the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, but he didn't care. After all, in his eyes, this was just a piece of trash belonging to the Lord of Profound Secrets. So what if he wanted to kill him? He was no match for him at all. You want me to apologize and hand over my spirit ring? Dream on, Unless you can defeat me in a direct confrontation. Haha, a piece of trash belonging to the Lord of Profound Secrets like you can't even compare to a single finger of mine, Mdar sneered. As soon as Mdar's words came out, the human cultivators were all furious. This Mdar was simply making things difficult for others. Mdar was an early-stage Lord of Creation, while Zhuoan was just the Lord of Profound Secrets. He actually had the face to say such shameless words. It was really too shameless. What? You don't dare? Scared? If you're scared, then don't grumble in front of me. A piece of trash like you has no right to accept my apology. My apology will only be given to cultivators stronger than me, Mdar said arrogantly, raising his head. Then let's fight. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,